Welcome to the Two Lines Podcast. I don't know if I'm your host or your co-host, but my name's Spencer Lewis, and I have Noah Overby with me today, who is the other person that's going to be helping me build. He already has been helping me build this podcast in the garage, and we had this idea a couple weeks ago, and we're like, you know what, man, who cares if we don't have it perfect? Let's just get it set up. So, yeah, tell him what did you think about the build for this?
Man, it's come together. I mean, truthfully, there's a couple more things I'd like to do, but I think that's inevitable. Both of us have that desire to constantly improve, and but I think it's shaping up. It's a good little setup for us.
Yeah, it's like we have the space, or else we'd have to do like a studio or something. We got the lighting, all that kind of stuff. We got signs, we got cameras. We definitely don't have exactly the way that we want to have it set up, but um, we'll eventually get there. But I think to kick off a first episode of this, just before we dive into you, because that's really what I want. I want everybody to know, who you are, things like that, because we are going to be doing stuff, not just work stuff, but family stuff together. We already have been for the rest of our lives. So I want them to know who you are. But first, I want them to know how we met. Because I think social media, man, is like, it's such a bad, like, man, like I wish I could not be on it, but that's how we met.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell them, share the story about how we met and how this kind of all started.
Well, so I was nearing the end of my career as a highway patrolman for North Carolina. Um, I knew for a long time that I wanted to go full time with my photo, video, things of that nature. Been following your content for a while. And I'm very selective on like how I take things on, who I take on, because there's a lot of people out there just like that
Mhm.
you just know you're not gonna be able to work with.
Yeah.
But I just in my gut I was like, man, I'm gonna reach out to him, see what he says, and if I remember correctly, it was something along the lines of like, hey man, I really like your stuff. I'd love to help any way I can.
Hmm.
Just let me know if you'd like to meet up or something, and we can start
Hmm.
working together.
Hmm.
It's simple, direct message. But what was different was I'd reached out to people in the past, like bigger companies and stuff. This is probably a year or two ago or
Hmm.
whatever it was.
Hmm.
Nobody gets back to you, man. Nobody. And I could already tell just because I've been following you for a while. I could tell you're a real dude.
Hmm.
You're just a genuine, easygoing guy. And you got back to me that day. Not only that, but you sent me a voice message.
That's rare.
Man, it's very
Not the
rare.
voice message, but the fact that I got back to you that day is.
But you did,
Yeah.
and like, I don't know. I'm a firm believer in Christ. I
Hmm.
really am. And I think that there's seasons of life that you have to go through to make you who you are.
Hmm.
And at that moment, like I said, it was in my gut. I just knew, like, hey, this is going to be a really good opportunity if I can make it work. And man, I'm so thankful I did
Hmm.
because you're one of my best friends now.
Yeah.
We have a lot more in common than a lot of people that I've come in contact with, and it's nothing against them. It's just
This is where everybody's going to see that.
yeah,
You know what I mean? This is where we're
there's
going to
just
share all that.
perspective,
Hmm.
and some people just didn't face some of the things that you and I have had to go through on a personal level.
Hmm.
And obviously we had different career paths, but
Hmm.
there's some similarities
Hmm.
in the things we tackle.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, we talked on Instagram for a couple days, and then I think as soon as we could, we figured out a time like to meet up and do something together. And I already had this 100-mile coming up. I had just had a surgery in December, so I was coming off of recovery, and it was like, man, this is not a coincidence. This is happening for a reason. And I remember my audio message to you was just like, your shit is awesome. Like you have, man, you have a really, really crazy talent. But I just want to share with you my past experiences and why, like, I'm just, man, I really didn't decide to work with anybody, but after seeing you and just like seeing not only your work, but then following you for a couple days and seeing your stories and just knowing that you have kids and a wife, and it was like, yeah, dude, let's do this, and I'm so glad, man, because I was at the point where I was like, this business is hard, you know what I mean? And you get screwed over, and it's just really easy to just be like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do it on my own. But I was like, nah, this is the missing piece, like, to the business but I didn't know that the business side of things were going to lead to such a good friendship that we have, you know what I mean? So, long story short, that's how we met. through Instagram,
Yeah.
and that's just another example. And we like, I don't know about you, but I've met a lot of great people through, Instagram, and then I've also had a lot of people try to take advantage of me through Instagram. So, I'm so glad that we met, bro, and I'm so glad that we're sitting here now. And I think we've only been doing this for what, 2 months,
Uh,
3 months,
three, yeah,
three
running up on
months.
three now. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Don't
crazy.
feel like it,
Oh, it
I
doesn't.
see every week now. I mean,
Yeah.
started out with just, once a week where we could, and it's evolved for sure. But like, I think it's the natural progression of things. Like when you're around people,
Mm-hmm.
and I know it's part of your brand that are like minded,
Mm-hmm.
you start to gravitate. And good friend of mine, Charles Myers, who's about to be, having his own story shared here soon. He always talks about like, bad company brings bad intentions and bad ways of thinking, but the good company,
Mm-hmm.
how much positivity can be brought through that,
Mm-hmm.
and I think both of us have, like I said, struggles we've been through, but me and you can relate on that,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I think a big thing for me is you're not afraid to tell me when something's messed up and when it needs to be improved, but it's not you being an ass about it. It's just like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
like we need to do this, 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 and this so we can do it. But like my brain works that way.
Mm-hmm.
I need to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we're at a point now, like if I told you something was up, you'd be
Absolutely.
like, yeah, man, let's fix
I
it.
know I know that you're telling me that for a reason, that you care about me, you love me, and we have the same goal. We're trying to build the same thing. We have very similar visions for our family, and so like best friends don't just let somebody slip up, you know what I mean? And
No.
I know your potential. I know your standard, and so like I also know that you want to live like that all the time, and so I'm the same way. Like I want you to push me, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I want you to know, you know what I mean, how to get me to get out of this funk, or be able to feel comfortable to tell me, hey man, like you're a dumbass for doing that. You know what I mean? Or you need to stop doing this because this is what is happening and you just can't see it. You know what I mean? And I feel like if I don't surround myself with people like that, then I'm just playing this fake world game, you know what I mean? Of just like living this, yeah, these are my friends, but we go talk shit behind each other's back. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Um, but okay, so I want people to know everything about you, not just being the videographer, because there is so much more to you than that. But I do want to give them a little insight about what I know about you. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just kind of a little intro. Number one, you are a believer. You are a follower of Jesus Christ, and that to me has been one of the biggest things that has stood out to me about you, and watching you, because you do live it. You live it, and you don't do what the typical strong believers that I have kind of come encounter with and just try to throw it all over me or anybody else. You know what I mean? But that is the number one, thing that I love about you, is that you're a believer and you're a follower, and you actually live by the word on a daily basis, not just on Sundays. So
Yeah. I
you're
try to.
also you're also a father of two. You're a husband. You are an amazing videographer, and you served this country, the Americans, the people that are driving on the interstate every single day. You know what I mean? You served those people, and not only just as a state trooper, but you were also in the military. You're also in the Army. So there's a lot that we are going to talk about in this episode,
Yeah.
and I'm probably leaving stuff out, but you know, um, I just want to know, man, like, tell me about how did you, I want to know, I want people to know how you became this person that you are now. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so I want everybody to know where you grew up. You showed me a little bit, and I thought it's amazing out here. So where did you grow up? And just walk me through, man, your childhood.
Yeah. So start at the beginning. My parents were very young when they had me.
Mhm.
Um, my mom was 17 coming on 18. My dad was 18 going on 19, or maybe 19 going on 20, but regardless, very young.
Young parents.
My dad joined the military infantry as well. He knew what he wanted to do. My great granddad was on Omaha Beach.
Hmm.
And like that carried, and I think for a lot of folks it does.
Hmm.
Um, that family history matters, and from a very young age, I always remember that mattering. Um, but my parents didn't have a lot. We lived with my grandparents for 7 years up in Stokes County, North Carolina. And to this day, just like I showed you the other day, I love that area. You
Mhm.
know, it's just peaceful. It's very still. It's kind of away from everything.
Mhm.
So the first 7 years of my life, it was very simple. I mean, I was outside every day. I don't have hair now, but I had blonde hair then. You know, because I was in the sun all the time. But man, I just remember when my parents were home, like when my dad was home. You know, him playing in the yard with me, things of that nature. Being younger, I think there's definitely a learning curve. And I can attest to that because I was a young dad too.
Mhm.
Not quite as young, but still young. You're just trying to figure it out. I think my dad was trying to implement a lot of the things he learned through his life, and that the military taught him for sure.
Mhm.
I will say that, you know, I probably had a stronger upbringing, and I'm gonna use the word stronger for a reason because, like, it wasn't easy,
Mhm.
you know. But
What did your dad do for a living?
so my dad at that time, like he was 11 Bravo, but then he ended up becoming 12 Bravo because their unit actually changed over and became combat engineers instead.
Active duty?
No, it was just guard.
Okay.
But he did go to Moldova, and then he had Marshall Islands, a couple different places. He went around the world
Mhm.
and just built schools back, things of that nature.
Mhm.
But when he was home, he worked for a building supply company, you know, in
Okay.
a warehouse, nothing, you know, spectacular or anything like that. He ended up moving to a different career later on, and I'll get to that here shortly. But when I was 7, we moved out of there, moved towards Winston-Salem, a little town called Walberg.
Okay.
And, you know, I knew from a young age that my childhood was a little bit different. Because, you know, you're around folks, you're around friends who are, it's not weakness. It's
Mhm.
not that at all. But like, I definitely felt from a younger age, I was held to a high standard, a very high standard. Um, and sometimes that come with some extra resilience built in.
Mhm.
But at the time, you know, I resented it a little bit, I think. But as I've gotten older, I've come to really, really appreciate all the things that were put in my way. Like I was in sports, like as soon as I could be. My dad coached, I don't know how many of my teams too. But unlike a lot of other people in those sports, like I was not the coach's favorite. If anything, I had to work 3 times as hard
Mhm.
to be out there,
Mhm.
you know, and that was again by design. Like you're not going to be given anything.
Is that the kind of stuff that you're talking about where you feel like you had like just a higher standard to live up
Absolutely.
to? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, nothing except for A's were
Mhm.
accepted in school. A B was a problem, you know.
How would
Um,
that problem get handled?
usually some form of discipline, something getting taken away, or you know,
I love how you parent your kids, man.
yeah. And I'm not gonna lie to you. Like when I was younger, I mean, I got my tail torn up, and I
Mhm.
needed it. I
Mhm.
mean, I hate to say it, but I needed it.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of folks out there nowadays that, you know, if they got their butt whooped a little bit, they
Mhm.
might have been in a better spot now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um, but you know, definitely was more active earlier. I've always had that active lifestyle. I think I was like 13 whenever I started lifting weights. My dad was a personal trainer for a little bit too at the
Mhm.
Y. I think like right when I was a baby.
Mhm.
Um, you know, it's just
So you had to get straight A's.
at least try. Like I mean, if it was a B, it better be a good reason why it was a B.
Yeah. Yeah. So outside of school, you're playing sports. Like I know we're gonna get into it. You became a state trooper, but like what were you playing cops and robbers and stuff like that? Like in the neighborhood, did you have friends? Like
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple buddies I lived on the road with. You know, I played with them from time to time, and then like as I got older, I grew stronger relationships with some guys at school.
Mhm.
Um, funny enough, I'm still friends with most of them. You
Mhm.
know, three, four, five of them I met in sixth grade, and you know we still talk just about every week.
Mhm.
Obviously, I made friends in the military too,
Yep.
and with the troopers, but um, like I said, there was just a difference.
Mhm.
You know, I do feel like I had to mature faster, and I see now that like I think my dad just wanted me to be prepared in case something ever happened. I think my dad knew way sooner than anybody that that warehouse wasn't going to be it for him.
Mhm.
You know, because he ended up trying to become a fireman, um, and I think the first time he didn't do as good as he wanted to. The second time, like he made it, but he also had an offer to become, you know, a paramedic because I think he'd already got his EMT at that point.
Mhm.
And he chose to go the medic route. Always loved it, and you know that was another sticking point when I was in middle school, coming through high school, my dad was involved with a lot more than I would say the normal dad, especially in my friend group. Not again, nothing against anything that they did. It's just it's a different world.
Hmm.
So the first responder community, I already had an insight to. Like I saw the demands of the job. I saw how it affects people. And I saw that like if you don't take care of yourself, mentally,
Hmm.
you can do all the physical stuff you want to, but if you don't take care of yourself mentally, just how much of an impact that can have on your family. I'm not faulting my dad at all,
Hmm.
but it took a while, I think, for my dad to make that transition because my dad didn't just do the paramedic stuff.
Hmm.
He became a medic, and then he became multiple years in a row like the number one saver, like most, you know,
So he
resuscitations.
left the
Mhm.
warehouse to pursue this saving lives.
Yeah, he literally he's like, this is not good enough for me,
Hmm.
and I'm going to do better for me that has purpose and meaning, and that is, I think, where the seed. I
Hmm.
mean, it was already there a little
How
bit
old
with,
were you when he made that decision? Do you remember?
I think, sixth grade,
Sixth grade.
fifth or sixth grade.
At a very like
Yeah,
that's a huge moment in
yeah,
childhood's in child's life. Yeah.
yeah, fifth or sixth grade. That's when it happened. My mom, she's sweet as can be. She's always supported my dad in anything, and I think that's been helpful to see too, because he always had someone that was behind him, which ultimately laid the stage for like what I'm looking for down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, my dad wasn't just a medic. He ended up becoming part of a SWAT team for both the city and the county. Arguably one of the best SWAT teams that I'm aware of.
Hmm.
To this day, I mean, when I was a trooper, like that SWAT team had to handle a situation that our own state SWAT team wasn't allowed to. And it wasn't that they weren't capable; it's just they weren't allowed to. And that SWAT team came in and had to handle that situation. Um, so I saw the effects of that
Hmm.
from a young age, and like with that, if you're not dealing with the medical, like the mental side of it, I mean, there's going to be heightened irritability, heightened frustration, lack of sleep, things like that. Um, so like I had to step up sooner than most. I was taking care of myself in a lot of ways. Just because my dad was still figuring out how to take care of himself, dealing with what he was doing, and that's something we'll get into with this
Hmm.
is the life of first response like that. It's one of the most selfless and selfish things that you can ever do.
Hmm.
Selfless in the fact that people need it. They need that help. There's an emergency every day, legitimate emergencies. There's some that are fake too, but legitimate emergencies that need people there to handle it. And that is great, but like it does take a toll on people
Hmm.
immensely. And like I said, from I think sixth grade, I started keeping myself. Like I'd get off the bus and, for the 3, 4 hours until my parents got home from whatever they're doing. If my dad was working, because he might have a 12-hour shift or something, it might just be me and my mom. Um, so I had to mature faster because I was a lot of the times the one, doing the chores, mowing, dishes,
Dude, it
everything,
it
take care of.
sounds like, I mean, I've seen you as a dad now, and it sounds like I know exactly where that came from, where this
Yeah.
comes from. And I've met your dad, and it's like, man, what a great example. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it makes sense why you care about being such a good example is because, you had a dad, you had a guide, and so it makes sense, man. And I'm so glad that you had that because I had an awesome relationship with my dad too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that's why we're the way that we are. Um, so you get through anything big for like high school? Did you play high school sports?
Yeah. I ran track. I played football.
Hmm.
I never played baseball in high school. I played baseball up until I got to middle school, and I knew it
Yeah.
wasn't going to be my sport.
Yep. Yep.
Same thing with basketball.
Hmm.
I focused in on football until I got to high school, and then sophomore year I stopped playing football just because it's one of those things you knew. I feel like by sophomore year, like, hey, do I have a chance here
Yeah.
or do I not?
Yeah.
And like if I'd have been, I think, dedicated and focused at that time and only focused in on that,
Hmm.
sure, maybe.
Hmm.
I have been blessed. I feel like I've been born with some natural athleticism that some people just aren't. And again, very thankful for it, but I just wasn't dedicated at the time. My mind wasn't where it needed to be. And,
Yeah.
you talk to anybody, it doesn't matter what it is. Like if you're not dedicated in that thing,
Yeah.
good luck. I mean, it's probably not going to happen. You're not
Yeah.
going to get better at your craft by focusing on 10 things.
Hmm. So graduated high school, where'd you go from there?
So it was probably junior year that I knew that I wanted to go into the military.
Okay.
Um,
How did you know?
I can't really describe it, but like there was something in me that was like longing for that service.
Hmm.
I already had that service mindset. Like, and you know, you talk to any of my friends, like I always try to be someone that goes out of my way for other people. Even to this day, now that I've left the patrol, like I try my best to go out of my way for other people, and I don't need anything in return. That's
Hmm.
not the kind of person I am. That's not the example I had set in front of me,
Hmm.
you know. And soft, it might have been sophomore year, but between sophomore and junior year, I knew I wanted to go, and I remember asking my dad if I could join because at that time you had to get a waiver, you know, and my dad was like, "Are you sure?" Like, obviously he was in, but at the same time, like he wants better for me, you know. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of things about being an infantryman that aren't super, glorious, and they aren't very fun at times, and you know that more than anybody. And
Hmm.
he's like, I mean, are you sure? Like, yeah. He did end up talking me to doing the guard like he did, so I could get my associate's degree knocked out. And you know, I'm glad I got that done.
Hmm.
If I want to finish out my bachelor's, I still have that at my disposal. But I did. I joined at 17, and then was it March of 2015? So it would have been my senior year, the year I graduated. I swore in. You know, in August, right after I graduated, when everybody else was going to college and
Yep.
partying it up and doing everything like that. Man, I was heading off to Fort Benning, Georgia,
Hmm.
and as you know, that's a different spot on earth.
Yeah. What do you remember how all of that went? Do you remember where you guys went first?
Yeah, I mean,
30th
yeah,
AG?
30th
Like,
AG. I do remember, being in those barracks at 30th AG and like realizing, like, okay,
hmm.
and you kind of hit on it with your last thing, like, I'm in a different place right now.
Yeah.
This is different than anything I've ever been exposed to, and like
But
people,
when you left, you thought you were gonna like go and
yeah,
be like day one
day
rad.
one
Yeah.
go. No, like that first two, 3, whatever it was, two
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this kind of
Yeah.
sucks.
Get me out of here. Can we
Like
start?
like I'm ready to start. I'm ready to do something.
Yeah.
You got to get all your shots. You got to get it. You're starting to get indoctrinated, but not quite.
Hmm.
There's nothing like true day one.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but when we were there, like there was people, and this is what drove me nuts, is because again, from a young age, like that resilience was continuing to be built. I was
Hmm.
always held to this high standard. Then you had these guys that showed up, and like I don't know what they were expecting, but we hadn't even started yet, and they're like freaking out.
Hmm.
And I think you might have hit on this too the other day.
Hmm.
It's like, but they're freaking out. Like people trying to like kill themselves to get out of there.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what is going on?
Yep.
Like, guys, we're fine. We have a place to sleep. We have a
Hmm.
place that we're getting 3 meals a day. Yeah, you have to do a little bit of push-ups and sit-ups and this, but like we weren't even, we
Yeah.
weren't busting it then.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it was just crazy to see all these different walks of life come together in this one little pit of, what it was.
Hmm.
And, I remember like in that first 2 weeks, I was like, man, I may have made a mistake. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like, but I do need to start day one because this is getting old. This is getting old.
Did you have any once you got to day one? And I mean, we could go into all the
Yeah.
details, but we won't. Is there anything that from basic training or anything like that that like you were faced with? Hey, this is really fucking hard. You know what I mean?
I, again, I was not, um, I'd been yelled at before,
Yeah.
so like
Yeah.
not a big deal.
Yep.
I've been yelled at before. I've been held to a very high standard before.
Hmm.
So like I am very thankful for that. But there were like moments like having to disassemble the entire, you know, barracks and
Hmm. Hmm.
having to bring all your stuff to the sand pit and like all just the stupid stuff. Like
Yeah.
it was moments like that where you're like, hmm, this is a lot different. But like I do feel grateful for all those. Like
Yeah.
I can't think of like one thing where I was like, I don't see the purpose in this.
Hmm.
But I do know, and I don't know when it happened exactly, but I do know when I came back home, and like I said, all my buddies went to college, and then I went and did this.
Hmm.
When I came back home, like it was very clear and evident the divide and the difference in the person I was before I
Yeah.
left
Hmm.
and the person I am now, and like truthfully, forever changed.
Hmm.
I mean, and I think you hit on that too the other day. It was just forever changed, in my opinion, a good way.
Yep.
Um, I'd already had to mature to a certain point before I went.
Mhm.
But like I really felt like when I came home in
Yeah.
comparison to some of the people I was around prior to, and seeing how they were changing, like you grow up quick. You grow up like that, and it's you're a different mindset. The things that actually matter in life come a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't have a lot of room for just bullshit.
Yeah.
Um, because at that time, I mean, you're getting out of there like you're trained to be a killer.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what
That
it
is
is.
all you that's
You were trained.
infantry.
You were
You're
trained to be a killer,
That's it.
and that is all I know. And like, I think it was weird for me because like I made really good relationships with all those guys. And I remember leaving, and like I didn't want to go to a guard unit,
Mhm.
and
You wanna go active?
I wanted to go active, and
Yeah.
like I definitely didn't want to go to a guard unit when I was graduating with everybody. I wanted to
Mhm.
go off with
Mhm.
a couple of my buddies that were going to Fort Drum or whatever they're going. Like I
Mhm.
wanted to go and do that,
Yeah.
but that wasn't in my cards. That wasn't my contract.
Mhm.
And like maybe there's a way I could have changed things. I don't know. I'm glad for where I'm at now.
Yep. Yep.
But I do remember getting back to the civilian side of things after all that training and all those months and whatever. And I was like, oh wow,
Mhm.
this is not something I'm going to fit in well with,
Mhm.
and it did take some time,
Mhm.
um, because I just feel like there's so many people out there, and like I'm not saying anything bad about them, but like there's a lot of problems that people face that just really aren't they aren't problems,
Mhm.
and I don't think that got any better for a long time, because like it almost felt like a disconnection. I mean, you tell me, man, but you probably felt that same feeling with some people that you're dealing with. You're like, and it is their problems in their own right, and I'm not discounting that, but like no one's shooting at you, no one's bleeding out,
Mhm.
you know. We're not in a stressful environment. Like we'll be fine. We'll get through it,
Mhm.
And I think that did kind of carry over, and why I always felt discontented for a long time until I ultimately joined the patrol.
Yeah.
So
Tell me about that. How did so you finish basic training, you get this itch to wanna, like, live this lifestyle all the time. Um, you come back home after basic training. What How long from then until you joined the state troopers, and what made you decide to do that? Why a state trooper? Why not go active duty? Figure that out. What drew you to being a state trooper?
well, so I went to a headquarters unit to begin with by accident. So no one, and that was another thing that from the gate, the guard, it never really was my thing.
Mhm.
I stuck through it, because I believe in finishing everything, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, but like no one came to pick me up from my unit to tell me like, hey, this is where we're going. So like I got thrown into like a headquarters unit. I was the only infantryman there. Everybody else is at Smithfield, which is where I ended up going.
Mhm.
When I finally got to Smithfield with my guard unit, like it was, I was very happy to be there. Um, but you could already see, I think, across a bunch of the older guys that have been there for a while, like there's just this level of, I don't know, disdain or something. I don't know what you want to call it, but
It goes back to that, who you surround yourself with.
yeah,
If you're just
yeah,
around a bunch of dudes that are low testosterone, low motivation, low shit, that's gonna wear off on you.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And
and that sounds like what you walked into.
well, and I did like there was some really highly motivated individuals there,
Yeah.
and they were great. I
Mhm.
mean, like I tried my best to surround myself with them as much as I could, and
Yeah.
and I made some really good friends. And one of them now he's Raleigh PD out this way, and I have to keep up with him when I can. He's but they were far in between in our unit.
Mhm.
Like I just felt like a lot of the guys in our unit just were just okay with the bare minimum.
Mhm.
And like that's never been where I've been okay with.
Mhm.
But like when you're in that environment, you know that there's nowhere to go. It's like what do you do?
Dude, you're a brand new dude.
Yeah.
You're looking for you're like you walking into that room like, "Hey, I wanna learn shit."
Yeah.
If nobody's gonna teach you anything, that all that motivation, all that want is just gonna die.
Well, and it did.
It
I
just
mean,
died.
ultimately it did. It
Yeah.
died.
Yeah.
Like I remember like when I first got there, man, I was like, I want to go Ranger School. I want to go airborne. I want to do all these different things.
Mhm.
And it's like I pushed it up the ways that I was told that I needed to push it up, and nothing
Yeah.
would come of it. I push it
Yeah.
up again, nothing would come of it. And then, you know, I made it up to, a specialist,
Mhm.
and I put it up trying to become a sergeant. Like I put packets in for that.
Mhm.
And then just to come to find out when I actually got out in ETS, like they were sitting in the bottom of a file cabinet.
Yeah.
And like that
Yeah.
just shows you it's, and I'm not saying that's the status for everybody
Mhm.
in
No, you're just
in the
sharing your
guard,
experience. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like, and I was
Mhm.
one of many people like where their just stuff was pushed to the bottom, and it was like, we're not going to push this. And for whatever reason,
Mhm.
I don't care because like it worked out. I'm where I'm supposed to be now,
Mhm.
but it is frustrating. Your motivation, like you said, it just kind of goes away. And like I kept seeing that on the faces of everybody who came to the unit. I hope it's better now. I hope that like there's the right people in those positions that are making the right decisions, and these young soldiers are getting out.
Probably not.
It's hopeful,
Yeah.
but like I don't know,
Yeah.
because I'm not there, and like Godspeed to them. I'm glad I'm not.
Mhm.
Um, what led me to the patrol was I was on the way out. I was on the way to the end of my first enlistment because I did re-enlist for 2 years just to keep benefits. Because what happened is we were supposed to. I'd gone to App State and I was only there for like a couple months. We just finished up with helping out with a hurricane with the guard, so I did enjoy those moments, like getting to help with a hurricane and whatnot. A lot of sitting around and waiting sometimes, but when we got to help people and like pass out legitimate supplies they needed, that was really cool. And I think that continued to grow that service mind. But we got back. I was at App State. I was in the RTC program, and at that time, like after already being in for a few years and like seeing like how things, at least when we were training, we got to see what right looked like sometimes because you would have guys that were active duty that came in and like, hey, this is how we do this,
Mm.
and legitimate good SOPs. Like everything was fine. But so when I went to App and I was in the RTC program, we had an awesome, cadre leading us because I came in as a junior. I already had my associates. He was an 18 Delta, awesome dude, salt of the earth. Like, if I saw him today, shake his hand, he's a good dude. He asked me to go to like there was like I don't know what they called it. I can't remember the official name, but it was essentially after school program for these guys that were trying to do like more elevated stuff, like maybe go ranger, like whatever it is.
Mhm.
He's like, hey, can you go like and see how they're doing CQB? Just kind of like keep an eye on it. And he's like, don't say anything, like don't try to pull the prior enlisted thing, just kind of keep an eye on it, make sure nothing is completely messed up.
Mhm.
Man, I went in there and I have never seen anything so just jacked up in my life. Like to the point, like I called timeout. I was like, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. And like we had to talk about like, hey guys, this is what a corner fed room looks like. This is what a
Mhm.
center fed, like we had to go over dead space, like simple shit.
Mhm.
And I remember I knew at that point, I was like, okay, maybe RTC is not where I want to be. And at that time, we were also getting told like, "Hey, we're going to go on a deployment." At that time, it was like an undefined, like, "Hey, we could be going to Afghanistan. We could be going to this. We don't know."
The
And
private news network.
yeah, private news network was spinning, man, and it was going and going and going. I was like, you know what? That's probably going to be better for me. I'm going to leave college for now because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I just knew that like I was kind of already on that path. I was like, I don't want to waste money. I was putting myself through college. My dad and mom didn't have it to give to me. I was using what little VA stuff I had. And I hadn't deployed it, so I didn't have like post 9/11 or anything. It was like, what the Montgomery GI
Yeah.
Bill. So it was just a little stipend or something. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna save that, go get perspective. Little did I know at the time, the perspective I was gonna gain was not gonna be from the military. Um, Ended up meeting a woman and found out she's pregnant right before I'm supposed to deploy. Um, and try to make it work best of my ability. Cause I mean, again, I saw my mom and dad, and they're still together to this day.
Mhm.
My dad found out my mom was pregnant and he did what he felt was right and took care of her, took care of me, made sure that we were taken care of holistically. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I didn't know this girl, you know, I'd only known her for a couple months and I don't mind admitting that.
Mhm.
Like I knew her for a couple months. We had an accident and, here we go. And, I wouldn't trade it for the world because my little boy and my little girl were like best things that ever happened. Truthfully, I mean, it was like that final step of growing up that I needed. Um, but coming up for deployment, um, she ended up having some health issues I had to come back for. So I never actually got to cross over. I mean, I was literally like a couple weeks out or a week out or where it was. And I had to come back home, which crushed me.
Mhm.
Because like now at this point, like I don't know how many changes I'd made, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here's another change again.
Mhm.
Um, and it didn't sit well with me knowing like all the guys that were going, and at that time I think they had already determined like they were just going to go to Kuwait, but still like the principle of it was like I'm not going to get to go do this thing that I've prepared all this time for. That sucks.
Mhm.
Came back home. My son was born November of 2019. Again, absolutely just wouldn't trade him for nothing. He's
Mhm.
something else, man. I he's smart as can be. He's 6 now, and he has all the potential to be 15,000 times better than I ever was. And I hope he is. But when we came back, I went and worked at a metal shop. My uncle had worked there, and I'd worked there part time in the past, in between things. But I was like, all right, I'm going to do this full time because I don't know what else to do.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go work there and learn metal fabrication. Learned press brake operation, plasma cutting, all that kind of stuff. And I remember sitting at home. My son was already born. I remember sitting at home. I think we moved to an apartment at that point because we lived with her parents for a little bit. And I was just like, this is not enough for me. I was already wrestling with, I didn't get to go on this deployment. I didn't go active duty like I wanted to, but obviously I'm going to finish my contract out. I was like, what can I do? And like I said, I was coming up on like, am I going to go re-enlist and just finish out another 2 years, make it a full 8-year contract, or what? And I remember I wrote down in my notes app on my phone, I was like, okay, these are the three options. I'm going to stay full time at the metal shop, knowing what the ceiling is,
Mhm.
because I mean, the highest I could ever be was where my uncle is still at right now. Um, or I'm going to finally go active duty, do what I wanted to do. I mean, I never stopped training. And even to this day, like I still try to challenge myself. I'm going to go and do like an 18X contract. I'd started talking to the recruiter. I was like, hey, I'm at the end of my guard contract. I would like to potentially look at taking an active contract now. But at the time, my wife then didn't didn't want to go for that action. Um, it was just going to be too hard, or I don't remember the exact words used, but long and short, it just didn't seem like it was going to be a viable option. And still being service based, I mean, I've had interaction with troopers in the past. At that point, because when I first got home from basic training, I had a wreck, and I just remember how kind that trooper was to me. He's still in right now, and it was different than any other law enforcement I ever dealt with. And I didn't have like super big run-ins with the law or anything, but you could see a difference between some of your average deputies and average city cops and the highway patrol. It was a different standard, and like I think from my childhood, I gravitated towards what is the highest standard of this thing. That's what I want to do.
Mhm.
I want to be the best in this area. And I know that there's people who listen to this and they'll be like, "Oh, city cops are the best." And that's fine. Like I don't, I'm not discrediting anybody's
Sure.
opinion on that.
Yeah.
Like there's some awesome dudes in every single agency.
Mhm.
Period.
Mhm.
I love them all. I
Yep.
mean, still, would do anything for any of them. But to me,
Yep.
I wanted to join the patrol. Clean uniform, clean car, militaristic in the sense of like how they operate and the things. So I was like, all right, I'm already halfway there. I've spent 6 years in the military. Like I know how this is going to go. Well, I put in a packet with them. It takes some months to get involved with that. You have to do all these different check offs and present information, yada, yada. Finally came time for me to make that decision, and I took it. So December of 2020 is the time I left the metal shop, and I was supposed to start patrol school, but as everybody knows, 2020 COVID came around,
Mhm.
so we were dealing with that mess. We ended up getting put into a district office for 3 months. So I went to Davie County and got put into a district office for 3 months. But the cool thing is I got to be surrounded by some of the guys that were already working, doing the thing, and had an awesome first sergeant who's now a lieutenant. Again, another guy, salt of the earth, just really good dude and gave great guidance.
Mhm.
So I'm already getting exposed before I go to patrol school to these guys, this culture, and like how things operate. Was training with a guy
All
that
right.
was
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. So you brushed over this wreck, but I feel like that's the point where you started to pay attention to troopers and then
yeah,
starting to get this interest, right?
yeah.
Like you told me about this wreck the other day. It wasn't just some fender bender.
No,
You flipped the shit out of that car.
yeah. So funny enough, I actually live less than a quarter mile from where I wrecked, and it's the only time I've ever wrecked. I mean, other than like a patrol car, colliding with another vehicle for like chase, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was heading to the gym. This was like right after I got back from basic training, infantry school, whatever,
Mhm.
and I just lost traction. It was raining just a little bit,
Mhm.
and had a '98 Monte Carlo, built like a tank, thank God.
Mhm.
Ass end came and lifted up, and I just started rolling and felt like Ricky Bobby. That's what I tell everybody. I was rolling like Ricky Bobby.
And I saw the location where that happened, like, you could have easily died.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I missed a telephone pole by like 6 inches.
yeah.
You know, um, and I do remember sitting there like I think I'd already been stress inoculated enough that like it just didn't really bother me, and it probably should have. I mean, I know I was adrenaline rush,
Mhm.
the shock of it, but I wasn't like I was flying. I wasn't going like 70 miles an hour or nothing.
Mhm.
But the 55 or whatever it was still enough, and I
Mhm.
know from now that that can kill people.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I had to with a buddy of mine that was at the gym. He came yanking on the door and me kicking, and that's the only way I got out of the car. Um, and I have some scars on my hands and stuff, cut my hand open and whatnot. I was really just more mad about losing the car than
Mhm.
anything because it's like that's the only thing I had.
Mhm.
And I knew that I didn't have a lot of money to go buy, um, another car right off the bat. I was gonna have to drive my mom's old beat up Ford Focus or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
So you're trying to figure out what's next,
yeah,
and then you just trash this car, and you somehow pulled being a state trooper from this, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
I did because is a Trooper Bogus at the time. He's
Oh,
pardon me.
you know him?
Well, I haven't
That's
seen him
cool, bro.
I haven't seen him since the wreck, but like I've heard of him and I know
Yeah.
he's with like I think Interdiction now.
Okay.
But I was sitting in his car. He let me sit up front with him, and as after being a trooper now, he totally should have gave me a ticket. He did not.
Mhm.
He's like, "Do you think you're going a little fast?" And I'm young and dumb. I was like, "Nah, I mean, I was going 45 was the speed of the road, but like exceeding safe speed for conditions, like I charge that all the time to young folks because they need it. Like I
Mhm.
needed a ticket that night.
Mhm.
Luckily I did learn my lesson from almost dying, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of folks out there that just need to slow down when it's raining.
Yeah.
But no, I just remember my interaction with him. He was just so calm, so collected. He's very detail oriented. His uniform, everything looked
Clean.
good.
Mhm.
Everything was clean. Everything was, where it was supposed to be in his car. Like it wasn't super messy. Even though it was raining, like everything was just, it looked right.
Mhm.
And there was like I wouldn't have wanted anybody else there
Mhm.
at that time. And like that feeling that I had there,
Mhm.
I think ultimately is what kind of drove me to it. Like I wanted to be able to give that level of peace
Yeah.
to people in their worst times, and so that's what happened in that wreck. Yeah, I mean, I destroyed my car.
From that wreck, bro, when like how long after did you, and I want you to walk me through the process because I have no idea
Yeah.
about what it like how to go into the state troopers or anything like that. You know what I mean? What is that process like? How long from when that you had that wreck to starting the process? Did you tell your parents this? What did they say? All that kind of stuff, you
Yeah,
know?
and truthfully thinking about it too, like I guess that wasn't necessarily my first interaction with the trooper.
Okay.
That was my first uniformed interaction with a trooper. But like one of my basketball coaches growing up that coached with my dad, he was a state trooper. He ended
Okay.
up retiring out. He was interdiction too, Tim Cardwell.
Okay.
Um, and I went to school with his son, and we played sports together. That was probably my first interaction with him. But he's the same way, like just you know, very calm,
Mhm.
collected. He's definitely old school trooper
Mhm.
guy. I mean, I've heard stories since that like you didn't mess with Tim.
Yeah.
Um, but I when I decided to go into the patrol, I remember I did call my dad because my dad was not about me going law enforcement.
Really?
No, he wasn't at all. I think it's just there's a lot of negative things that have happened for law enforcement out there. There's a lot of negative mindsets to
Mhm.
what the job entails. Like people a lot of times just breeze over what the day in and day out means, you
Do
know.
you think that seeing everything that you've done, seen, Eli comes up to you and says that he wants to do it?
I would struggle with it.
Mhm.
But like I'm pretty big on I don't want to discourage him if it's something he truly wants
Mhm.
and he understands
Mhm.
holistically what it all means.
Mhm.
Like my job, I feel like is to educate him on like this is the realities of it.
Mhm.
Um, with the understanding like if he still chooses to do it, like I'm going to support him. I want him even if he tells me like I want to go be a Green Beret. Okay. Well, I'm going to put you in touch with someone like you who can tell you everything that is going to be involved in this so you can make the most educated decision possible. Because that's how I run my life with everything. I want to make an educated decision on whatever it is. If it's big stuff, you better take the time and understand what am I getting involved in to the best of your ability. There's some things you can't prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
You know that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, if he said that he wanted to do it, I mean, heck, if Remy wanted to do it, you know,
So you can kind of understand where your dad,
oh yeah,
now being a dad,
absolutely.
okay, so you told him he didn't want you to do it. You're like, no, you just felt that calling.
Yeah, I told him I was like, I mean, I got to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, it's not even a want. I got to.
Mm-hmm.
You
So
know,
where
like,
do you go from there once you decide, like, hey, I want to be a state trooper? Like, there's a recruiter's office for the Army.
yeah, I
I
don't
have no
remember.
idea. Never seen a recruiter's office for state troopers.
No, I don't remember if I got like a just a contact number.
Okay.
I can't remember who gave it to me. I do think it was around that time I was still living in Moxville. It was around that time I met a guy by the name of um, shoot, what was his name? That's gonna drive me nuts. I just had it if you'd asked me 5 minutes ago. Jimmy Staley.
Okay.
Jimmy Staley. Yeah, he was in the gym working out. You know, big old dude. You did not want this guy. If you were in trouble,
Mm-hmm.
you did not want him coming. I can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
But Jimmy Staley, he was there, and I don't know how the conversation got struck up. It was 5 o'clock morning because I had to work out before work,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow I got a number for a recruiter. Got in touch with him, and then man, it really wasn't like a super hard process. It was just long. I felt like it was no different than anything else you do, like preliminarily to do whatever. I mean, similar to MEPS or similar to like you have to do a PT test with the recruiters for the Army, you know, like just to see baselines.
Mm-hmm.
I know I had to like I have a reading comprehension test. I know I had to do, um, you know, a PT test, of course, and then we had to do like an online test, and then you had to do a like an interview in front of the board
Mm-hmm.
that they had selected for these recruits coming in, and you would get a conditional offer, and I'm assuming they still do it the same way now. You get a conditional offer of like, okay, we're willing to employ you. This is the terms of it, and like obviously, you like I have a certain time frame that like if they're going to invest this money in you, like you can't just jump ship.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously, if you don't cut it, then you just don't cut it. But like if you make it and they do all these things, like you got to stay. And um, it was a little different though with the patrol in comparison to the military, because in the military, like Uncle Sam owns you. I mean, you ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Good luck getting anywhere. You
Yeah.
know, they're going to track you down. Patrol's different.
Okay.
Patrol is like when you got to patrol school, and I ended up going March of 21, graduated September of 21 after the 3 month little stint, because at that time I was, you know, unfortunate part of the classes coming through that had to get the COVID vaccine mandatory, or you can't join the school. And like I'd already left my other career, so like, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I have to get it.
Yeah. Before we get into this, because we're going to really dive deep into this, like as soon as you hit this stage in your life, I feel like there's a lot for us to go into. I don't want to skip over any of it.
Yep.
So let's take a break for like 2 minutes real quick. Come back in.
Yeah.
All right. We are back from the break a little bit. And, I just want to start off with saying, man, that I hear so many special operations podcasts and things like that. And I'm coming from the special operations community. This conversation and being able to get to know you as a state trooper, man, like these stories need to be told more, man. Like the stuff that you guys go through on a daily basis, man, like I've told you this before, it's insane, man. Like to be able to go through all of that on a daily basis, worst day ever, go home, be a good parent, wake up the next day and do it all over again. Man, that's not how the special operations community is. That's not how the military is. It's not, dude, there's a break, there's a break there. I could go over and have a terrible time in this area, but then I come back home and I can forget about that because I'm not reminded about it every single day. You guys are driving the same roads, the same thing on a daily basis, man. And it's like, I just have so much respect for you and those like you. And that's why I want us to go very in depth, because this job is very, very important. The things that you do and the things that you seen and dealt with and save people's lives, like it's very serious. So I want people to know every step of the process, what it takes to become a
Yeah.
state trooper, and not just to become one, but to be a good one.
Yeah. It's something I kind of, failed to mention before. So like in that same deciding factor time of like, am I going to go active duty? Am I going to, do this? I was also expecting my second child, my little girl. And that played a lot into it too. And, I think ultimately, again, I don't remember the exact conversation, but I know it hovered around, I can still serve and be home, and I put quotations on that because it's like, you are home, but in some ways almost makes that more difficult. I think the good thing about like every time, again, I didn't get to deploy with the military, but every time I went on training, like you're completely isolated.
Mm-hmm.
You're dedicated. There's no other distractions. You are doing that. That's it. No one's texting you. Like most of the time we weren't allowed to, whatever it was. Like especially like go to NTC, like you don't even have your phone. It's in a box back, where you came from. So like there is no reason that you can't perform at a high level when you have no distraction. Being a police officer, being a fireman, being EMS personnel, patrolman, whatever, it's constant distraction. And like you have to fight against that on a regular basis. But that's why ultimately I went to, was so I could be home. Like I said, March of 21 was the start of my patrol school. I'd gone through all the different things, did, good on my PT test, all this other stuff. We used to have a PT test day one because they want to see, like, okay, have you been training since you're, one to get you in here?
What's the PT test? Do
So
you
you
remember?
got push ups, sit ups, and a mile and a half run. And then they also have different stuff in it too. Like they measure like your vertical jump and like a bench press and stuff like that. It's nothing, it's not crazy. And then, you got your POPAT, which is like step ups and bag rollovers. It's simple stuff. People can, look up. It's clearly published, but it's nothing crazy. I've been doing push ups and sit ups and running for a very long time at that point, so I wasn't the biggest PT stud in the world by any means, but I mean, like I was in good shape. I was definitely a lot more trained than I'd been in a long time because I didn't want to show up and suck. And I think that mentality has carried over to, I don't want to show up and suck at anything. But, so I start March 21. The way that it goes through is they have you all come park. You're given a packing list prior to showing up. You have your, your bag, 2 bags, I think is what I had. You like a backpack and like a bigger bag. And then you're sitting in this gravel parking lot all waiting. And then, you can look up the videos of it, like the people that are going to be your instructors that are coming, they all march in together and call you to these squares. So you come to these squares. And from what I've understood, like it's very much kind of modeled off of like how the Marines do things, I believe. So you have these squares, you show up on these squares, and then from that moment, they are ripping you apart in any way, shape, or form they possibly can. They want you to break, because that was the difference about the patrol in comparison to the military. The military, they own you. They're going to break you down. They're going to throw your stuff. They're going to do whatever. You're gonna be in it, but you can't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere at all. The patrol, they want you to leave. They don't want you there. If you don't have what it takes, they do not want you there, period. And like, to me, that was enticing. For some, that was terrifying. My buddy that, we literally went through that 3 month train up. We weren't supposed to be, lifting or doing anything because it was COVID and, let's watch out. Let's get each other sick. But we were training every morning. We were running every day. And man, we only just got barely smoked. Not even anything crazy. Because they're ripping you apart. They want to make sure you have all your stuff. They're yelling, cutting, screaming. You're doing your thing. You go into your barracks, and then you're doing wall PT. Wall sits and jumping jacks and push-ups right next to each other. It's sweat fest. I mean, it sucks. Taking your water, dumping on you, like all that kind of stuff. And then he ended up quitting in the vehicle inspection because they want to make sure that your vehicle, I mean, it's highway patrol. They're going to make sure there's nothing in your vehicle that ain't supposed to be there because you would be shocked what people show up to school with. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I had nothing in that car. I knew it was coming. I had nothing. I had my registration, and I had an IFAC. That's it. My trunk was empty. Everything was empty because there's no. What do I need? But he quit on that. Like he's like, yeah, I want to go home. So, and he was one of many. I don't know how many dropped first day or first week or whatever.
Yeah, what's the size? Like, if you can remember, what was like the average number of?
I think we started with like 80 something,
Okay.
give or take. It was a big class, but I think we finished with like 50 something. I can't remember the exact number, but in the 50s, we dropped like 30 people, and a lot of them didn't need to be there.
Yep.
There's some folks that graduated that still didn't need to be there, and they ended up dropping later on.
Yeah.
And nothing against them. Like, just there's some careers that some people just aren't made for, and I'm not saying I'm some superhero or I'm some this, that, or the other. Like, but there's some things that people are built to do, and some aren't. I mean, you saw that.
Yep.
I mean, like, nothing against them. There's other roles for them that they would excel and probably do 10 times better than I could do it.
Yeah. I truly believe there's something for everybody, but
Absolutely.
there's very clearly something not for people too.
Absolutely.
Like it's,
and it makes me think. There was people when we did our Red Man, which I can kind of break that down here in a second, but like asking me, do you think they're going to hit us in the face? And like this is our first introduction to like legitimate combatives and things of that nature. And I'm sure he'll be here, at some point on the podcast when you'll meet him. Buddy of mine, Ethan Bradshaw, was my Red Man. Knocked the brakes out of me, right? But I put my hands down. It's my fault. But it just cracked me up hearing in the locker room these guys freaking the heck out. Like, are they going to hit us in the face? It's like, dude, where do you think you are at? Like, do you understand where we are right now? You didn't prepare for being in a fight and you're becoming a patrolman? Like, you understand, like, we are going to be on the side of the road by ourselves. No one's going to get to you in the next 20 minutes. And it's you. Some people have to fight on the side of the road. Some people don't. Depends on, I guess, where you focus and, luck of the draw. I didn't have anything crazy happen. I had to handle some people. I've had some buddies that, they met the devil. The devil was on the side of the road and they had to fight him. And I think patrol school does a really good job of trying to emphasize the importance of being on your P's and Q's and always making sure that you are detail oriented. You're looking at the finest little details. But everything that they train you for there is to keep you alive. And just like the military, the very same things they train you for to be this trained killer and this and that and the other also makes you really, really horrible sometimes at being a husband and a father. Really horrible. Because you're so focused. You're so dedicated to this that it's almost hard to separate. But like when we're in patrol school, like, yes, it physically sucked, but it was the mental aspect for me. I think that was harder than anything.
how long is it?
I think ours went like 26 weeks or something like that, maybe 29. I can't remember.
Going home? Do you go home every night?
So no, you don't go home every night. So
Okay.
you're there. You come in Sunday evening or afternoon, and then you're there up until Friday afternoon. So you get Friday afternoon up until you come back. Just a day and a half, 2 and a half, whatever it is. And I think that, again, that almost makes it worse because now you have a chance to not come back every single week. There was 2 times I think we stayed 2 weeks in a row. But that mind game alone of like, do you really want this? Do you really want to be here? It was constant. And I'm thankful for it because, I mean, again, like I think it does a good job of weeding out the people that don't need to be there out the gate. And then, it kind of sets that standard of like, you've got to be locked in, man. Mm-hmm. Because during that time, we don't have any phone contact. We don't have anything unless like we did something that the instructors determined like, okay, this is a reasonable time to, give them a 5-minute call home or something. But those are far in between, But for good reason, as you would probably understand, because like if you're not dedicated and you're not locked in, you're not retaining that information, you could get killed. Like you have to be locked in. And I hadn't been in that place of like where you're just fighting to stay awake in a long time. Because like what we'd do, we'd PT early in the morning. We'd wake up, before dawn. And we're working out in a wet field of grass, and it had those little spike things in it too sometimes, and you just got to deal with it. Mm-hmm. We had coordinated PT every day. We would get done, rush in, do group showers just to get it through as quick as we could, go and eat something, and we would be right in class because it wasn't just like we had to had the physical demands of the job, like we had to learn a lot of information. I went through a long school, so you had to learn all the BLET information every single day. You had to get a certain percentage. I don't remember what it was. I think it was like 80%, maybe 70. But you had to pass this every single day, every single week. You had to like a test, and then you had your state exam, and then patrol school technically didn't start until after BLET was done. I don't remember how many exact weeks BLET was at that point, but
And what is BLET?
this is basic law enforcement.
Okay.
All the stuff that you got to have to be, on any agency,
Mhm.
and you would see that too. I don't know if we had anybody leave our class, but some people would go and get their BLET knocked out through the patrol because it's paid for. Because you get paid, cadet salary. It's nothing crazy, but it's something. You get paid a cadet salary, and they would leave as soon as they got BLET and go work as a county deputy or something like that. I don't know if we had anybody leave our classroom. I can't remember. I think we might have had one. I can't recall that because it's been some years. But
So it's 26 weeks, or around 26 weeks
in total,
in total. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there phases is there like 6-week phases where, you're learning BLET and then, the next phase where you're all doing medical stuff and then the next phase? Like, are there testing points throughout the.
Yeah. So there are checkoffs for
Mhm.
different, sections of BLET, and
Okay.
I was very thankful. We had a really good instructor that led a lot of it. It was Trooper Legan. Again, another just great dude. He's very thorough, very detailed. He was a DRE, which is like drug recognition expert, which is not an easy thing to become. But he was built for it. Drunks, drugs, DWI stuff, like that was his bread and butter, and he wanted to go further with that and educate. And he did a phenomenal job delivering that information. I think that he made like all these Quizlets that we could tap into because we had our MDT from day one. So the one I got in patrol school was the one that I ended up turning in. Thankfully it lasted that long, but he would make Quizlets and everything. He would teach us the information, so it really wasn't, to me, hard to pass those tests as long as you just paid attention. The hard part was staying awake because you're exhausted. Because you're up at 4:30, whatever it is, and you're just beat to crap all day. Because if we weren't doing things right, I mean, in between our breaks, because we had to have a certain amount of breaks throughout, because BLET has certain standards, we get smoked. And that adds up over the day for sure. And but it was nothing new to me because I'd already been through Bennett. I'd already been, like I just knew this what it was. Um, but yeah, when BLET ends, that's when like official patrol school begins, when they're doing long schools. And now I think they're only running short schools, so like you have to already have BLET done. But when patrol school started, like there was a distinct difference because now, gloves are off. There is no like you have to be in bed at this time. There is no like you have to wake up. Like you're at their mercy. Good luck. And again, I think that it really caught some people off guard. I knew it was coming. I felt it.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, we're gonna graduate with our BLET stuff, whatever, and then now it's gonna be time. I guess that's similar to infantry school. Like you turn in blue, and now it changes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different ball game when you go turning blue and now you're in infantry school compared to just your basic training.
Mm-hmm.
Similar concept, and we started that morning. All the instructors pulled their patrol cars on the outside of the building because we had like this old building that everybody goes through. They pulled their patrol car up to it, turned their lights and sirens on, and like coming there like fake shotgun, boom, here we are, here we are, and like from that point on, the precedent was different. But like that only lasted like a week because like at that point we're already well in. If you don't have your stuff dialed in by this point, like man, you should be there.
Yeah, it's very similar to like selection. They're trying to get the people that are not supposed to be there out, and then once you get selected and you go into the next phase of the qualification course, which is 2 years long, they're not there to weed you out. They literally want to teach you.
Yes.
But they're not going to treat you like you're a dude that's already graduated. But they want to teach you.
Right.
So don't get comfy, but like we're not going to smoke you for some dumb shit.
Right, unless it's something you really messed up,
Mm-hmm.
and like those are far in between. I think at this point most people had it figured out. I was very fortunate. I had a really good class. I mean, I know probably a lot of people say the same thing. And I know that it's always the stigma. It's like, oh, my class was harder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I didn't go through your class, dude.
Yeah.
And that's one of my biggest pet peeves. It's like, man, it may have been harder. who cares? We're both here. Here we are.
I think we have the same size thing.
It's the same uniform, you know. And like I'm very happy to have made it through, and like it wasn't easy. I think it was, like I said, it was mental for me. Is like because my daughter was a week old when I left. She was a week old when I went to patrol school, and like to me that almost made it harder for me to relate to some of these guys. Who are like, oh, I miss mom. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
You miss your mom, dude?
Mm-hmm.
So my little girl's at home. She's a week old, and my wife at the time is raising her by herself. She had the help of her mom and dad, but still, like
Mm-hmm.
those are two different things.
Yeah.
Two very different things. And then I guess it is perspective. Like maybe that was all that guy had.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. But to me it was really hard to relate, of like this is not a problem, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it kind of goes back to like when I got back from infantry school, like a lot of these problems I've always had a hard time, relating. And I think that's what I was kind of hitting at too. Like they make you really good at being a killer. They make you being really good at this, but it also makes you really really hard pressed to when your wife has a problem of seeing it as an actual issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't mind talking about that and being transparent about that. Like I have to actively try my best to put myself in someone's shoes when they are having an issue so that I can understand why it's causing them pain or whatever it is. Because a lot of the stuff that you have faced, a lot of stuff that I've faced, it just doesn't, it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll figure it out. Um, but like I said, we were there for 26 weeks, 29 weeks, whatever it was. Graduated. I was fortunate enough to be able to come back to my home county in Davison, where Wahlberg is at, and so I already had a leg up. I knew the county. I got put in with two really good FTOs. Both of them had been there for a long time. One of which was like on the last few years of his career, so
Mm-hmm.
he had a lot of experience to share.
What's an FTO again?
Field training officer. Yeah, he. Both of them were really good. They were completely different in the way they worked, which is fine. I think you need to have different perspectives. Um, but they had a lot to offer. They had a lot of things that they were making sure you did really good as far as being detail oriented. Your officer safety was good. And like I always try to take things seriously. I don't know if anybody necessarily tried to be silly about it or anything, but even in training, I tried to really make sure I'm clearing that car, doing those reps over and over and over and over of like, okay, where are things normally stored? Where are things? What do I need to look for? Where are his hands going? Is he looking target locked on me? Like, I thought about that every single stop. It didn't matter if it was Granny Sue or if it was like a legitimate, gangbanger or something. Like, I wanted to make sure that I had the same repeating process so that I didn't miss something, and I can't attest for everybody. I don't know if that's how they skin it. I don't know if you kind of get into a rut. I tried my best to actively not get complacent because I know, just like with your career, complacency kills.
So,
Kills.
what was graduation like? Like, you get through those 26 weeks. Is it like, here's your thing, and we'll see you tomorrow. You start tomorrow, or what's that like?
I think we had a couple weeks off.
Okay.
So we graduated, and we had, I think it was a couple weeks, and I did go to my district office and met my first sergeant at the time. Met some of the sergeants that were there, and then 2 weeks later, I started FTO. And the first day for FTO, it might be the first 2 days you're riding along with them, just kind of seeing how they work, seeing, this is how they do a stop, this is how they're talking to people, things of that nature. And then I was like, I think it's day 3. Like you're now driving, and he is making sure that you are doing the things that you were already trained to do, but like even further training. Because like you can get all the training you want in a controlled environment that is not compared to the real world. It just doesn't. You can be told how to approach a car all day long, but until you're dealing with someone who's like a legitimate criminal, like that's a different ballgame.
Yeah. But what about graduation? That's what, like, bro. You had just been through the army, all that stuff. Didn't get to deploy. I know you wanted to. Now you're through all of this stuff. Like, what did you feel like when you were like, all right, like I finished this, and now did you have that feeling of like, it's go time?
I did.
Yeah.
I was definitely motivated to in my opinion, like at that time, I feel like I could actually make a difference now. Um, so
Did
me
you
and
cry when you graduated?
yeah, I did, man. Like it wasn't like I was bawling or anything, but I definitely it was emotional.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot to take in, and my whole family came, and they do a pretty good job at patrol school graduations. They have like a guy on the bagpipes, and like they're doing like the drums and like everything. It's a really cool experience. If anybody gets to be a part of it, I mean, I definitely recommend seeing that because it's cool. And like I also so I sing too. So they'd asked me to sing the national anthem for my graduating class, so I sang the national anthem. That was cool.
That's awesome.
Me and a buddy,
Dude,
of mine,
that's sweet.
yeah, me and a buddy of mine, we sang the anthem for our class, and I ended up going back again later for another class. But nonetheless, we we're already told, like we had a rehearsal of like how this is how it's going to go. I mean, similar to infantry school, like you knew what was going to happen, but actually doing was a whole other thing.
Mhm.
And I walked across the stage. You shake the hands of the colonel, and the governor didn't come to ours for whatever reason.
Is this where do you get a badge? Like,
So we already had gotten our badge and everything. This was
Okay.
like just kind of getting like your completion. Like this, you're done. I
Got
think
it.
they actually give you like a legitimate paper that's like you have completed this. Like you swear in, like you put your hand on the Bible and you actually swear in, and
Oh, wow.
So I still have that Bible, and I still
Okay.
have like where I actually swore in and everything. Your hat badge in the patrol, and that's something I did skip over. Is that is one like that was like a turning point because like at this point you hadn't earned it. That hat badge means something. Um, we had this whole ceremony dedicated to that of like, now it's real, and like that was, I can't remember, it was maybe a couple weeks before, maybe like a week or two before, I can't remember, but you got your hat badge, and we spray paint. So all the hats are spray painted too.
Really?
Yeah. So we put them on like cardboard boxes, and we're spraying them down with like high gloss black. Um, I think some people like end up doing matte like down the road, but like I think high gloss is what it's supposed to be. So I'd always touch it up if I needed it because you got your acorns and everything, and your strap. It all matters. Like it all has a significance to it. Like I mean, it's the same uniform they've been wearing since 1929. So I mean, it hadn't changed. Yeah. It's not the most comfortable, but it looks sharp.
Yeah.
And like you can still function in it. Again, that was a cool situation, and I was also fortunate enough in patrol school. I was one of like the cadet sergeants. They I think kind of gravitated towards people that have been through military training in some sort to kind of lead these guys that have never been introduced to this world. Um, and I'd already been in that type of position, so I mean, it wasn't like anything crazy was expected of us. It was just like, hey, we're gonna lead our rows. We're gonna lead. We had like a PT sergeant. We had all the things. So I was very fortunate enough to do that and be in that leadership role. Um, very thankful for it. Like I said, I had a really good class.
Yeah.
But when we graduated and it was all said and done, like there was a cool feeling because like that's also when we get to take our cars home. And I think it was the week prior to that, we got our cars. We drove them from where they issue them. We drove them back and staged them at the patrol school. So now we got to look at them every single day. So like they do a really good job of like you earn everything, which arguably made it even harder to leave when I knew it was time because like I knew everything that had been earned to that point. And I'm sure you face the same sort of thing getting out of the military of like, you did all these things to get to this, but you knew it was time. It's like that's the hard part of it. And I can get into that more here in a second. But so I graduate, had great FTOs, and I was also fortunate enough, I had some really good, now lifelong friends that were working the district and were like they weren't sergeants or anything, but they'd been there for a minute. They had earned their place, and when you're first there, the guys aren't really talking to you a lot. They don't want you to just feel like you made it now that you've become a trooper. Like you still got to earn your spot in the district now. But I tried my best. When it goes back to surrounding yourself with the right people, I tried my best to surround myself with the people that I wanted to model my actions after. One of which is a guy named Justin Over. Again, love him to death, lifelong friend now. He was the drunk man. And I don't know why, but like that always was enticing to me because like to me,
I know what you mean by that, but what does that mean to be the drunk man?
so he
Like,
was
is this dude drunk as fuck at work or
no,
what?
no, no, no. So this is the guy who is the lead DWI enforcer. Period. No one is beating him. He's the hammer.
Mhm.
He's the guy. He drives an unmarked car for a reason.
Mhm.
At that time they still gave an unmarked car to the guy that was the hammer. Um, and I remember meeting him, and he gave me a lot of shit, but it's exactly what I needed. He made me better every single time I was around. Every time we did a checkpoint, every time we did a speed check, whatever, he was always giving quality advice of like how to actually be a trooper. Because like you have your FTO period, and then you get out on your own after I think it's 12, 14 weeks, something like that.
Mhm. So, before we go into all that, I think it'd be really good for you to explain what a trooper's job is because, before I met you, my opinion on it, man, was straight up like you're just out there to pull people over and hide in the fucking grass and like get me as I'm flying down the street or not down the street down the highway. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I have learned so much from you about what it is. You're not just some speed radar. You know what I mean? It's so much more.
There's so much more that goes
Yeah.
into it. Like everybody has their roles. Like the county guys have their roles, the city guys have their roles, and the troopers have their own dedicated roles. Sometimes they overlap, but for a trooper, the main thing that we're handling is obviously motor vehicle law. That was why it was formed. It was they had all these fatal collisions happening, and they wanted to make sure they could cut that down. Their response to that was let's form the highway patrol, and let's cut down on fatal collisions. That was the initial inception of it. That turned into a lot of different things, like any roadside issue that came up. Someone has a flat tire and either causing a hazard, let's address that. Anybody that's, near a roadway, let's address whatever the issue is. Now, I will say, most days you're handling wrecks and then you are enforcing speed, but you're also looking for things that would kill people. Like I know that some people are against wearing seatbelts. I got it. Unfortunately, there is data to show that, like, if you get into a high speed collision or just a collision at 55 miles an hour and you don't have a seatbelt on, there's a good chance, because I've seen it, there's a good chance you might go through that windshield potentially. So, probably should wear it. So, like, we had to enforce on that too. And then we'd always back up too. Like, if the deputies needed something, we would be there. If the city guys needed something, we'd be there. Our jurisdiction doesn't end at a county line. It doesn't end at a city's, municipality. They're going to go a mile outside the city.
So, what would you say the percentage? I'm just going to say it for you, bro, because you're probably going to be humble. Would you say that this is true? These speeding tickets are like a very small portion of what you deal with.
Oh yeah.
The other portion is people flying through windshields, accidents, just very, very, very crazy things. You know what I mean? So you assholes out there that get pulled over and you treat these guys or girls like shit, just remember that 99% of their days or whatever could have been a total absolute wreck. So I just want you guys to remember that.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, that's such a small portion of my day. Like, there's no quotas. Like, and I know people are like, "Oh, the patrolman has to write this." There's no quota. There's an expectation. Like, if you're working for 10 hours and you didn't have any charges, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Especially if you didn't have any wrecks. Like, if you have wrecks, okay, got it. But if you don't have call service, you don't have wrecks, and you don't have charges, and you work 10 hours, did you work?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's no quota. I know a lot of people think there's this huge quota, like we got to write this many charges. No.
Yeah.
I definitely held myself to a standard though. My first FTO was like, dude, if you're working 10 hours, you can write a charge an hour. That's simple math. You can do more than that, but like that's a good level. My other FTO, he was like, I write 5 charges a day, but he'd been there for almost 30 years, so like he's playing the long game.
Yeah.
But he wanted to make sure, actually, both of them wanted to make sure that it was quality charges. We're not out to get people that are just whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are like, oh, if I'm 9 over, I'm going to get a charge from a state trooper. Probably not. I mean, I can't assess for every single county. There's 100 of them, but
But you know when you're going 9 over that you're taking that risk. You know what I mean? Like,
But I wasn't stopping people that were going 9 over.
yeah,
My
yeah.
10 charges or 5 charges of speed or whatever, that was coming from people like, I didn't even start, this is the God's honest truth, I didn't start writing charges for speed until you were 15 or greater. And I still didn't have a problem writing that many. You know, same thing, like you would not believe how many people don't wear a seatbelt, how many people run stop signs and whatever it is. And it's like, that is our main focus. So like if we're writing charges, that's going to be our time. But to me, and to get back to, with Hubbard and picking up off of him, it's like, I felt outside of doing the wrecks and being the calm in the storm for those people that are having the worst day of their life, like the most impactful thing I can do as a trooper is stop these impaired drivers from causing the collision to begin with. Because
So like DWIs and DUIs and stuff like that.
DWI was the number one thing I focused on. And between Hubbard and, the worst collision I ever worked, that's what changed me into being so focused on DWI. And I think coming in focused with DWI, like you're now also focused with officer safety. So like defensive tactics, that always was something that I was interested in. And had I stayed, like I was planning on trying to go that route of like, maybe being an instructor in there. One of my best friends, Alex Whitley, down in Montgomery, and Stanley, that's his bread and butter. He does jujitsu every day. Like that's his thing. But he was also the drunk man. He was also the DWI guy down there, and he's smoking. And he's smoking because he agreed with me. Like this is one of the most impactful things we can do. Like I said, Hubbard.
Why is it? Why do you think it's the most impactful?
Man, some of the worst collisions I've ever saw, and the worst collision I ever saw, was because of impairment. Period.
Do you want to go into that?
Yeah. Speed obviously kills. That's known. So like speed alone will kill you. Because it's unfortunate. It's not that necessarily the speed kills you. It's the rapid deceleration of your body in compared to the force of the thing that you hit. That's what ultimately does it. My worst collision that I work with, and I don't mind being transparent about it. We would always try to share a meal as troopers. We would always, if we could, on duty, all the guys come together. Let's go eat somewhere. Let's have that camaraderie and build that brotherhood up, sisterhood up. Well, this night it was January, and so it's still cold out. We just sat down at a Mexican restaurant just to eat. It was later in the evening, so like we had passed like normal dinner time. We just sat down to eat, and I would always scan the county radio. I would try to hear like beforehand because there's always like a 12, 15-minute delay sometimes between like when the county gave something out and when our comm center finally got it and sent to us. And it wasn't their fault. It's just because like that's the way it went. So for the firemen out there, they're like, they're not taking their sweet time. They might have just heard about the call. Unless they're scanning the radio like I was, and then you're kind of already ahead of it. But nonetheless, we're sitting down. They gave out this driver who was potentially impaired, but it was like a good, 25 minutes from us. So like by the time we got to the location they called out, A, there could have been a body delay, and B, they probably moved on from that location. It wasn't that we weren't trying, but like at some point we do need to just sit down and try to eat something, get back in the store. If we're in the area, we're going to stop it. Try to intercept it, stop something from happening. But this call came out, and we were nowhere near it. It was like 30 minutes out or something like that. We were continuing to eat our food, and then we heard, it wasn't maybe, 8 minutes later, something like that, over the county radio, of a head-on collision that had happened on NC 109 South. And then we heard shortly after that, because like at this point, we're rushing out of the restaurant. Because like we are already piecing in our head, like, okay, I think this might be the same driver. Even though we're out, like we're lights and sirens busting as fast as we can get over there. As we're driving, we hear like the car's fully engulfed, and then it went from there's only 2 vehicles to now it's 3 vehicles involved. Show up, and a lady who was very, very, very heavily impaired struck a mom and her 2 little boys at 96 miles an hour, left to center. Hit them so hard that she spun around and hit the car behind them. And that force of hitting that car behind them broke the driver's leg in the car behind. And then she came to rest on the other side of the road again. So like she returned back to the lane she should have been in, facing the wrong direction. But you know, at that time, like I don't, especially like as a God fearing man, like I don't hate people. I really try to see good where I can. I really try. But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, that's the first time I hated somebody. Because what we walked into, and I can see it clear as day, like I can still smell it. You know, these are the things that I know I'm not alone in this. There's troopers that have seen other things. There's people in other situations. They can relate back to a situation. Um, I saw this car that was being put out by the fire department at this point, and then I saw this little melted hand. So more than likely, you know, they were killed on impact just because of the force of it. More than likely, and I try to find peace in that and hope that they were just killed on impact. They didn't suffer. Um, but man, I really can't describe like just how visceral that image was because like we have to collect photographs of these fatal collisions too because it has to go into a file and criminal investigation, all kinds of stuff. But the mom and her two boys melted in that car, completely melted in that car, and then they had to be extracted. You know, vehicle cut open by the fire department and taken out. I mean, one of the firemen, just to describe just how bad this situation, one of the firemen shortly after that killed himself. Um, just couldn't process this. I mean, like, I don't think anybody really could. We ended up having this is the first time and the only time in my entire career of being a trooper that we had like legitimate sit down with everybody involved in that call. We sat down at the fire department up the road that responded, the main fire department, and had like I don't know, had like 2 hour brief with mental health experts, people that were part of our MAT team, which is like our members assistance team, came in and like debriefed us because like that's how bad this was. People that have been on the recon team, which is our reconstruction team, they do like usually your second degree murders and like homicide stuff. One of the guys that had been there forever told me that he had never seen something this bad. And he'd been there for 20 some years. So I was like, I already knew it was bad, but like we have a job to do. In that moment, man, I was mission oriented, dedicated, did what I needed to do, got all our measurements. The lady that caused the collision, she ended up living like a few more weeks after that. And she was like in a vegetated state. She wasn't there. But she ended up passing on. And then the thing that I think hurts the most too is like there was a little boy because there was a school dance going on up the road. There was a little boy up that was at that school dance. He was in the car that was the second one behind. His dad is the one that broke his leg. He was also a fireman, so they were a first responder family. He broke his leg, and then I can't remember if mom was in the front seat too. I can't remember. I don't know. She might have just shown up. He might have picked him up, but nonetheless, the little boy watched his friends melt right there, front and center. Watched them melt. So like, I know that it bothers me to this day, but I can't imagine, what happens with that boy. Like I pray for him every day, because I just can't imagine seeing one of your friends melt. You're not supposed to see that stuff. No one is. But
And you have kids at this point.
yeah, I have kids at this point, so this hits.
Mm-hmm.
This hits pretty hard. I was still married to my first wife then, and that's all I could think about. That's all I could think about was this could have been easily. Because the way this part of the road was like 109 South is notorious. It's a graveyard, man. There's crosses everywhere. I can't make sense of it. It's one of the widest parts of the road. It's got wide shoulders, clear visibility for the most part. This one section is like she was topping the hill, and there was like not enough time. There just wasn't like, especially 96 miles an hour. You don't got a lot of reactionary distance. So we're handling it. We're getting the measurements and everything. And it bothers me to this day. Like there was people like trying to take videos of it and share it on Facebook, and I just don't get it. I don't like, why do you want to be a part of this misery so bad that you have to do that? And like, that's another thing that I think is skipped over for law enforcement, first responders in general. Is like the general public sucks. Not all the time, but like it's in like moments of this, like where this is a clearly horrible situation, and the only thing you can think of is I'm going to video this and put this on Facebook so that I can be a part of it and be, relevant. That drove me nuts. Because the helicopter, we had to call air carrier in to get her, the one that calls it, out. Again, she still passed 3 weeks later, but they got her out. I'm there with really two good friends of mine. I'm a sergeant. Anytime something like this happens, any fatality, a sergeant has to show up. But this one was so bad. Like I said, a recon team showed up on scene. If I remember correctly, our captain at the time showed up on scene, and a lieutenant. And then I know my first sergeant came out. Like they were off duty, so they came on duty. That's how bad this one was. And I remember the dad. Like I don't think it really anything hit me at this point. Like obviously, I was just doing my best just to keep it all together and like handle the situation. Nothing really hit me until the dad showed up on scene, and I've since talked to him. I didn't see him this year, but I try on January to go out and see him to tell him that someone's still thinking about him. But he showed up on scene, and like I just remember like stopping him and telling him like, as a dad, I cannot let you go further. And like typically speaking, I think it is probably helpful for people to have that closure, but like I just can't express how bad this was. That no dad ever, ever should see that. I'm so thankful he didn't, and that he listened to me and he trusted me in that moment to not go further and see that. And that, because I told him, I remember specifically saying, I need you to hold on to whatever you have in your mind, any photos that you have. I need you to just look at that. That's all you need to remember. Do not go further. Because he was wanting to fight us. I mean, as any dad would. He's like, I want to go help my babies. I want to go help my wife. Well, and after dealing with him, I don't know how long we were on scene because it was hours. I kept it together until I got home, and I parked my patrol car into the driveway, and I just broke down. I just broke down for like 15 minutes straight. I'm not a crier. I'm not like a super emotional guy, but like I just broke down, and like I do know that that day I was changed forever. Um, it wasn't that I was sad. I was angry. I was like, it was hatred. It was hatred for anybody that could put themselves in the position to do what that woman did. I went inside, kissed on my babies, and went to bed and tried to sleep. I know that like that time afterwards is so fuzzy to me because I know I wasn't sleeping. I was trying, but I wasn't sleeping. I built a fence just to give myself something mentally to do to check off. We ended up going by the hospital with somebody on the recon team reached out. I met with them, went to the hospital to get blood from her or get the hospital records to see what her blood alcohol concentration was, and she was like in the 30s, like 0.3 something after a couple blood transfusions of giving her blood. She was still in the 30s. I mean, there was like 5 wine bottles in the car. She was a known alcoholic, and again, I just could not rationalize in my head, like, A, how do you get to this point and think that this is a good idea? B, as a family member, how do you let someone that you know is struggling that immensely leave? I couldn't wrap my, because like I know me, it wasn't even a judgment thing. If you were struggling with something and I knew that you were struggling with something, I would do everything in my power to be there for you, to make sure that you had a way to get somewhere if you needed it while you are figuring this thing out. I'm not judging you. People go through things. 99% of the people that I dealt with and arrested were dealing with something legitimate. They were hurt people. They needed help. But they also needed people to step up and take charge and be like, hey, look, I can't in good conscience let you do this because I care about you too much. And there's just not enough of those people. Most people are so concerned with what they have going on that they can't take the second to set themselves aside and be like, I really need to help that person right now. So like I said, after that wreck, after processing it to the best of my ability. I focused in, man. I focused in, and I was like, every shift, I'm going to look for an impaired driver. I'm going to stop an impaired driver. I'm going to be the best that I can be at this craft. This is what I'm called to do at this moment in my life, is to stop as many of them as possible. Period. If it means that I'm shaking the bushes at 3 a.m, then I'm shaking the bushes at 3 a.m. If it means that I'm having to fight the devil, then I'll do it. Somebody's got to be the guy. It was me. In my mind, it was me. There's so many troopers, there's so many law enforcement out there that have that same mission and that same mentality of whatever that thing is that they're focused in on. So it might be domestics, it might be child abductions, whatever it is. Those are the people I feel like make the most impact, because they become so hyper fixated on that task. The flip side of that, though, is I was so mission oriented that, truthfully, after that, I went through a divorce. Um, I'm very thankful. I see my kids every other week now, and never had a break in that, because I understand how hard it is to have that break. But, I went through a divorce. I had to work a very long time to find myself again, because all I was in my mind was, I am this trooper who will stop these people, period. That's all I am. And like, it got to the point, like, when I say I was so hyper fixated, like, to the point that like my wrecks were slipping, because like all I cared about was getting back out there to get another one stopped. Um, so you can be so dedicated that I feel like you're slipping on other areas. And that's just where we ended up. I don't know, probably 3 years after that, up until the time I left, that's all I cared about. But I lost so much of myself along that way.
All right, we are back from the break. I probably sound like Sean Ryan. I think I've watched this podcast so much, but I love the way that he has it set up, man. And there's one thing that I've really noticed about him, is that he actually cares, man.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? And I actually care. I actually care about you, and I actually like want. I've been told some of these things that you've been telling me, but I just, man, I think you're fucking awesome. So there's my little, spilling of my heart. But dude, I know that the story that you just told is one of many. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of things that you probably have forgotten about. You know what I mean? But I do want to know, like, I don't think there is an actual answer, but how do you move on from something like that? How do you make it through? Does it ever? How do you deal with it? I don't think there is this. You should deal with it like this, But I think your experience and how you chose to deal with this, I think, can help somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be completely honest, man. I don't know if the way I went about things was the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, when that first happened, I went and I sat for a while, and then I decided to build a fence. It's just so I could do something with my hands, get my mind off of it, and I try to keep my phone away the best I could. I mean, when something that big happens, I mean, you got people calling you. Like, you got your PIO guy that wants to know, like, what he can tell the news, like, as far as, like, that way he can, form some sort of story that, shows the patrol in the best light, which they should. Mm-hmm. And then, but also, like, respects the family. There's all kinds of things that goes in that. So I have my phone, ringing off the hook, and to the best of my ability, I try to separate. Like I said, shortly after that, there were other issues present. Again, the start of that marriage wasn't the most ideal one. I tried to make the most of it, make the best of it, and very thankful. Like right now, have a very positive relationship with my kid's mother. We're able to sit down and do everything that we need to take care of the kids. That's the ultimate focus. But I went through a divorce right after that. So like January, it was like, so right before that collision, I had a guy who, it's the craziest thing in the world. And it's not that I'm laughing about it. It's just like, it doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. He was tripping out on some drugs, hit like 5 cars on the interstate. This is like maybe 2 or 3 days before the collision I just described. And he gets out and checks on everybody, makes sure they're all good, and then like runs and jumps off a bridge and kills himself. That was a couple days prior. Couple days prior, there's evidence of needles and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so we knew,
Yeah.
that ended up becoming the county's problem because the suicide's not the patrols. I mean, that's intentional, obviously. We had to handle the collision, all the damages involved with the car, but it was what it was. But like, I had that happen, then I had the worst collision that I had happen, and then it was maybe only a month and some change, and my wife at the time asked for a separation. I tried to make it work the best where I could at that time, and it was what made sense. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to make this work for the kids. But ultimately, like, I'm just so glad that it didn't, because like now I'm remarried with, an absolute angel. I mean, truthfully, I mean, nothing's easy for anybody. Anything worth having is never the easiest thing in the world. But like, I'm 100% with the person that I was supposed to be with, and it wouldn't have happened if all these things didn't occur. But I will say that time of my life was extremely dark because it just seemed like one thing after the next. I mean, January was a collision. By March, we had separated, right on my birthday that year. So we had separated. And then had to move back in with my parents, living in their basement. And like, I always use this, like when I met my current wife, I talked about like living in that basement was almost like both physically and metaphorically, like just a dark space, right? Obviously basements are dark, but like in my mind, man, I was going through it. I was just truthfully, I mean, I hate to admit it, but I was suicidal. The only thing keeping me here was my kids at that point. Because I never had the time to dedicate to healing from that collision. Then the divorce, like I had all these life events happen, a move, divorce, and stuff that people just aren't supposed to see. So I had that happen all back to back. 2020, what was it? I guess 2023 is when it was. Worst year ever, by far. By far. And, but I did meet my current wife at the end of that year. So things did get on the upswing. And I think really what it came down to is like, I just decided, like much like you, like I'd already decided, I don't know how, but I'm going to figure out how to get out of this basement. And that was both physically and metaphorically. Like, I have got to get up. My kids are depending on it at that point, and it turned into like now my wife, she was depending on me. Like, and thank God she had the patience to deal with me at that time. Like, I still got a lot of stuff I'm trying to figure out. But, she met me arguably, literally, no, it was the worst year of my life. And, we ended up getting married this past September.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing I think I can tell people that are going through those types of events, and it doesn't have to be like a law enforcement officer, anybody that's going through like this extreme level of adversity against them, whether it's like a physical adversity or mental adversity, whatever it is, like just choosing to put that next foot in front of you is the biggest thing that you can do. Because like if you try to focus in, I believe, on the big picture of like, okay, this is horrible, I need to be here in 6 months, like you're going to be swallowed. You're going to crumble. But like if you just focus on that next step, I think that's how I got through it. Truthfully, that like I got back involved with the church, broke down many a times. I've told my pastor, that you got to meet the other day. Like I told him, like I needed that more than I could have ever realized. I'd kind of fallen away from my faith at that point. Not like that I didn't believe. I just wasn't close. Mm-hmm. And in that time, I really turned towards that. That helped me tremendously to overcome some of the things I was dealing with. And, I don't know where I would be without God at that point in my life, without him urging me to not listen to the demons in my head, because that's all it was. Mm-hmm. It was the devil, telling me I was weak, telling me I couldn't get through whatever it was. So I did. I just focused on the next step. I did dedicate very heavily into the DWIs. That was something that I think gave me a lot of purpose in that time, and I needed it. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I met people at their lowest points, whether that was in fatal collisions or with the DWIs. Like, I met people at their lowest points, and like I just tried my best to help them make sure they had the next chapter. That's the way I looked at it. I didn't look at it like I'm out here to get them. It was more like I'm out here to save them from what can happen. Whether that was just them being saved or it was another mom and her two boys and whatever else being saved. Like, I felt like that was the most impact I could have. So I tried to shift that pain that I was experiencing to try to prevent other people from having the same pain. Because, I mean, I did. I saw people ruin their lives. A good friend of mine, I don't know if it was that same year or 2024, it doesn't really matter. You know, he had already had a DWI before. I grew up with him, played sports with him, loved him to death. I haven't seen him in a while, but still love him to death. And he had already had a DWI. He seemed like he was getting his life back on track. And then I was supposed to take the call because it was in our county. I mean, I grew up here. It was in our county. A call came out where someone had flipped over into like a culvert off of a bridge, blah, 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 blah. And the rookie took the call for me. You know, thank God he did, because I would have strangled him. You know, I was like, man, I can't believe this. You know, we've already had a conversation, but I did. I went to his house and I sat down with him and I told him, I was like, man, I'm not here to judge you. I care about you, just like I told you a minute ago. Like, people need to take that step back. Like I had my uniform on, but like I took my tie off, I unbuttoned my shirt, and I walked in because I was on duty when he came back home from the hospital. I was like, dude, I'm not here as Trooper Overby. I'm here as Noah. And I was like, I need you to hear me, dude. Like, I care about you, and I care about you too much to let you tank your life. You know, and thankfully, man, I don't know if it was my conversation or multiple, and it doesn't matter. What matters is he's got one, if not two kids now. You know, he's married. Like, he got his shit together. You know, some people need that. They need to get their shit together moment. And, like, I felt like more times than not, that's who I was for some of these DWIs, and I hope so. Some of them, you can't fix them. There was people that I arrested that I saw them literally die the next year. You know, there was one lady that she was all hopped up on, you know, pills and whatever else. And then the very next year I saw her go head on and kill herself. You know, and some people you can't save. But I did try to.
It's not really something that people really think about, bro. Like, you know, you're working in this area for 5-10 years, and you see people probably go possibly from clean to seeing them get hooked on shit, and then finding them in a ditch. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean it
never
happens
even
all the
thought
time.
about that, man.
Yeah, it happens all the time. You know, it's just the inevitability of it. I think if you're in somewhere long enough, people are creatures of habit. You know, and if there's something that doesn't change them from staying on that habit, they will continue to that pattern of behavior until they die, or until an action happens that is big enough to wake them up. And that's with anything. It doesn't have to be pills and alcohol and all that. Like, people will stick to their routine. They will stick to their habits unless there is some force of nature that comes in and changes it. And it's just, what is it that makes somebody tick? And sometimes it doesn't happen. And sometimes they die from that very same thing that is you know, their everyday.
Dude, what do you like? What do you do to be able to, like, what is there anything that you would do during these times, or anything to like escape?
Yeah. You know, I've always worked out. I've always ran. I don't actually like running. I like the peace that I get from running, like the actual physical part of it. Like, I don't enjoy running. I think you're kind of the same boat. Like, running itself is not something that I feel like I was designed to be a part of. Like, I got some friends that are, man, they look like runners. They can run like the wind blows. You know, I definitely can put on muscle and lift weights and do better there. But there's something about running that brings me a level of just peace. Like, it's not in the first couple miles, but like if I can get past that, you know, I can really dial it in. And I think that's another aspect from my dad. Like, my dad did these ultra marathons, and like for the longest time I was like, well, who in their right mind would ever do that? And then I come to find out, like, no one in their right mind. But then with the understanding that no one's got this thing figured out. No one understands what someone's going through. And like, there seems to be a correlation with the folks that are doing these ultra marathons or these really, really hard things, that they have some level of trauma or something that has happened, and that is their escape. So I did. I leaned into the running. I got this ultra coming up in September. Terrified, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't never ran 50 miles in my life. I'm doing 7,500 foot of elevation gain, and that is absolutely bonkers. But I have to be challenged. I have to. If I don't have a challenge, like that's when my mind slows down enough that it starts wandering in places it shouldn't be. Another thing I do is, like I said, I sing. So during that time, I was recording more music. I got a couple things on Spotify or whatever, but it ain't
Yeah,
nothing.
what's the name? Where can people? They're gonna find you.
I know.
So you might as well just
they
tell
can just
them.
look me up on Noah Overby. I might just have one song.
I think that you're awesome, bro.
Well,
and I'm
I
not just
appreciate
saying
it.
that because you're, like my wife or something. And I'm trying to get in. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
no,
Like,
yeah.
no, like you're your homie. I would tell you if you're like, that shit sucks.
Well, and
that
yeah.
is no, right? It literally like every time you play it, you played it in the car one time, and I think MJ was in there, and she was like, "This is you."
Yeah.
And I told you, like you're really good, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed music. Anything creative, really. I mean, ultimately, I think that's why I am where I am now with the videos and the photos and stuff. I've been running the photo and video stuff on the side for better part of a decade at this point. But
Can I
it's always
point
been
some
an
out
outlet.
to you, bro? That I heard you say earlier.
What's that?
That it makes a whole lot of sense. That worst day with that wreck and those kids burning, you told that dad to go back and look at pictures.
Yeah.
That tells me that you, like, when you're taking pictures, you know how much they mean.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you understand what you're doing and why it means something.
Yeah.
And that makes a whole lot more sense about you, bro, that, when did you start taking pictures? When did you get into that? When did you obviously realize this? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I don't know, like, the very first picture I took, obviously, but, I think I've always kind of had an eye for it. I was always drawing at a young age. I had an eye for things that I thought were visually pleasing. Like, I understood composition. I understood, like, the different things that make things look, pretty or whatever it is. And I do distinctly remember getting a camera shortly once I'd gotten into the military. So, like, when we go do training and stuff, like, I try to take pictures
Really?
of us doing stuff. Like,
Hell yeah.
go, if we were out
yeah.
in NTC or something, like, I remember taking pictures, and those guys had that to look back on because, like me, I mean, I never went back. I didn't have a reason to. But, like, I have those things to look back on, and I always tried to, like, use my phone or something once, they got better with cameras. But I don't know what made it the change per se, but I do remember, like, I came home and I started taking pictures of friends, and, like, I just took this really big desire to learn and understand it, and, like, I put the free time I did have into understanding photography, videography. I already had the audio stuff going with the music, so, like, I kind of just put it all together. I learned video recording myself playing music, and that was just bare bones at that point. I mean, I started that probably in, I guess, high school, doing the little videos where I could, but it was crappy, cameras and stuff. But took pictures of friends and family, and then I had a friend reach out and say, "Hey, can you do my wedding?" This is after we're college age or whatever. And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." He went to the Marines. He's still serving, best in my knowledge, and man, it just kept building and kept pushing further and further. And I guess I never made that connection. But I did say that to that dad, and, like, because I did have an understanding of how important these moments in time are, even at weddings, like right now, like, I try to make sure that, like, I'm capturing, like, all the little moments in addition to the big moments, because, like, that might be the last photo that's ever taken of this person, ever. This might be Granny's last.
bro,
hurrah.
you understand more than anybody how precious life is.
Absolutely.
We don't, us civilians out here, bro, like, we are so blessed and so lucky. And for anybody that knows me, it's going to sound crazy coming out of my mouth. Like, we are so blessed and so lucky to have people like you to be there to take on that so that we don't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have no idea what that's like to see that on a daily basis, let alone sometimes never. Majority of people never see that kind of stuff, ever.
Right.
And you were doing it, I'm not saying every single day, I get that, but a lot of the times you're dealing with that or something else, you know what I mean? And it's just like, man, you understand that even an hour from now, that could change.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
that picture,
Yeah.
man, so awesome, dude, because it it makes sense why you do and why you are the way that you are, and I get to be around that, and it makes it a lot of sense now. You know what I mean?
Well, it's
So,
like even with your race that we just captured. Like
Yeah.
it was important to me that even though I'd never taken on anything of that scale ever, like I had at least enough understanding and knowledge of what goes into to making it happen, and I wanted to make sure that we showed up the right way, that it was the most visually appealing for that, because like this is something you can look back on forever. Because what if you never do another 100? And like you might decide that, and like. But at least you have this. You have this with your kids walking across the finish line with
dude,
you
if I
to
got
always look
smoked
back.
tomorrow,
Yeah, they'll
that
have
would be
that.
something that they would watch all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they will have that moment to
Yeah.
look back on. And like I look at photos, videos the same way. That is a moment in time that people will never get back. Like you can try to recreate things, and I think that's why I gravitate towards things that are like real events or like weddings, like things that you can't get back. Not that I don't enjoy like photo sessions like I did one last night. I think they have a place because it's still capturing a moment, but you have a little more control. But the things that you don't have control over, like someone's first kiss as a married couple, or first dance, or this is maybe your only time running 100 miles and your kid's crossing the finish line with you. You won't get those back. And like that challenge entices me because it's like I have the ability to serve and give someone something that they can cherish for the rest of their lives. And I think that transition started to occur. Like I started learning that I had more purpose than just what I was doing as a trooper.
Yeah. So you were doing, damn, like you're full-time state trooper and then building a business. Well, you were doing it because you loved it, right?
Right.
It turned into a business.
Yeah.
But like how the hell did you do that? Were you
Barely.
just working all the time?
Barely, yeah, all the time. And it didn't happen overnight. There was like a dedicated time, like I said, that night changed me for sure. I mean, there was multiple calls. I mean, we could spend hours talking about different things that happened. And again, I'm not no superhero, and I'm not. There's a lot of other troopers out there that have done amazing things and much more and survived things, and I love them all to death. I mean,
Yeah,
I really
there's a
do.
lot of superheroes though, bro. There's
There are.
not just one.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I hear that, but
Yeah.
like to me, and I don't know if it's the right way, but to me, like I did nothing special, but like I understand where other people look at it and like, okay, this was you did, and I appreciate that, but at the same time, like I have a hard time, and I think a lot of people in that profession have a hard time, like saying like, because it's just normal. That's just what we do, I mean, we're there to be the calm in the storm. My dad taught me that from a very young age. You are there to be the calm in the storm. But like, that's not just as a first responder. That's as a husband, as a father. Like, your job is to be a protector. Your job is to be, when shit's hitting the fan, you're the one that's standing there waiting to solve the problem. Tornadoes rushing in. Do you have a place for your family to go? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And like, I feel like from a very young age, I understood that, and like that's what I want my son to understand too. Like, because it is different. Raising a boy and a girl, that it is different. The expectations of a man and the expectations of a woman, they are different. They're no less important. Each role is very important. But like for my son especially, I want him to understand like, hey man, no one's coming. No one's coming. And I think my dad did a really good job of like putting that in my head at a very young age. No one's coming. It's you. So when I became a trooper and I'm there on the side of the road with, drunk ass McGee, that wants to fight me, I knew no one's coming. And like, they still might, 20 minutes they may.
Yeah.
But the principle of like, you got to handle this.
Yeah.
This is on you. That's always been there. And like I said, I've told you before, I still love being a trooper. Even after taking a step away from it, like I understand what the reality of that job is. I respect it. I'm still friends with every single one of them that I was friends with. I try to keep in contact. I even help the agency out with some of the video stuff still, and like I care about it.
Yeah.
But I realized that I was becoming someone that I didn't want to be anymore. That chapter of my life, I saw it coming to a close, and then I also saw that with my camera, I maybe even not only to make an impact, but maybe even make a greater impact with my camera, to share stories, to share memories, to share a mission. Like that goes far greater distances than what I was doing, on the patrol at the time, because yes, it was important, but there are some things out of your control. I mean, you go and stop this person from doing this wrong thing, or you catch this person that did this thing. And then like after that, it's kind of out of your control. You go to court and they decide if they're going to move it forward. I mean, I know other law enforcement face it every single day. I still go to court. I have pending cases. I mean, when I arrested a lot of folks, so I had a lot of pending cases still. And, I see it all the time, like things that are like legitimate issues getting thrown out every single day. And I think it makes that profession so much harder. With the fire side and the EMS side, I'm not discrediting it at all. It is so important, each of those roles, but on law enforcement specifically, you have all these things against you with the media. You have not great pay, but it's not about the money. It's about the purpose and the mission. But then you also legitimately risk your life just to go sit in a courtroom and told that your life essentially doesn't matter. I mean, I've had people almost hit me on the side of the road and a judge throw it out saying that there was no reasonable suspicion to stop the car, even though the guy blew a .27. I had to go to Superior Court to win that case because the initial judge didn't see it as a problem. But that's the things that cops, that troopers are facing every single day. And just look in the news. I'm telling you, probably as we're sitting here, someone just got shot. Probably. Probably someone died today, if not a couple, in law enforcement. And I know it's bad in the military too, but I just don't understand why it happened the way it did. Because, like, I don't know where I heard it recently. It might have been another podcast I was listening to, but, there used to be a time that being a cop, being a fireman, being in the military was like this prestigious, amazing thing, highly respected, highly regarded. Like, this is what a little boy wants to do. Now, it's no wonder they're having a retention issue. It's no wonder they're having people not wanting to go out in the first place because they see everything that's against them. They make an educated decision, be like, man, I think I can provide a better life for my family elsewhere. Because ultimately that's what happened with me. I spent this time I joined in 2020 and I got out this year in February. So, I mean, I haven't been that long, but I just saw the path that it was in store for me. I saw that, if I continue down this road, to survive here, I'm going to have to become a version of myself that I don't know if I'm going to be proud of. I'm going to have to shut off aspects of my life just to get by day to day. And then I'm going to, have the issues that are in every agency. I think we're at a weird spot right now with where the media focuses in on what a law enforcement officer does wrong. And to counter that, the agencies are trying to back it to where the public perception is not negative. But sometimes that means not doing your troopers right, not doing your cops right, not doing your deputies right. And like that's not where we should be. I could see some changes coming in time, and I think that there's people in places that are trying. I really do. But
is that what ultimately made you step away?
Well, between coming to the realization that we were not going to have any more.
All right, we had to take a little break there. We do both have families, so sometimes we're not just going to, sit here and do this podcast and ignore our family. So we're going to pick right up where we left off, which really what we're talking about right now is that point in your career where I think you were ready to start the next chapter, but at the same time, not let go and close that chapter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's definitely where things got to. Again, I definitely could have done better in areas, and I felt like I did the best I could in some.
You mean in like family life and like being able
Family,
to
the
balance this?
balance it, you know, all the things, you know,
Yeah.
and like that was always a weight that I had against me because I already didn't have my kids, but 50% of the time.
Yeah.
So that was really tough. And the 50% time that I did have them, like even when I was home, and that's when I was talking about earlier, like even when I was home, like some days I just wasn't mentally there. I just was so drained emotionally and everything else from giving it to other people that sometimes I didn't feel like I was able to show up for my family. And I know that there's so many people out there that face that.
Yeah.
Military, law enforcement, first responders, everybody.
Well, how do you justify missing all of that? You catch this dude or chick or whatever that's drunk as hell. You do your job, and then they get let go after court, or say that happens. You know what I mean? That's pretty hard to justify in my mind, to be able to be like, yep, this is important that I'm missing your life, my baby girl, my son, because I'm supposed to be, I'm protecting, you know what I mean? But doing my job, and these guys, like, bro,
It's hard, yeah.
and they expect you to pick that over your family. You know what I mean? Same in the military. So
Well, and I think what happened is, and I saw it more times than not, like a lot of the older guys that have been around, they just stopped caring about DWI. They stopped caring about, they would literally go and just write, you know, let's say they had a number of 5 charges a day. They would write their 5 charges, and any wrecks that came out, they just handle them, and they would go to the next thing. That's how they survived. And like, I think I started seeing a trend in like these guys that have been around for a long time. It's almost like they're just checking boxes. And I've never been that guy. I won't be that guy. If I'm at the point where I'm just checking boxes and I'm going through the motions, like, A, that's where people get hurt. But B, like, what's the point? You know, like, why do that? Like, why spend 30 years in a career that you're going to have to miss all of these moments in life of your own family to the point that you finally retire, and then your family doesn't want anything to do with you because you're just sitting there going through the motions every day. You're miserable, you know. And I'm not saying everybody's like that. Some people, you know, they stay dedicated the whole time, and my hat's off to them, man. Like, I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they strike the balance. You know, I never figured it out. I tried. I really did try. And I think there was some people in positions at times that, you know, they were just so focused on like that public perception, like I said, rather than the well-being of the trooper. And I know that happens in the military too. There's sergeants that are so focused on X, so they forget about the soldier. You know, it's not a new thing. It happens in the corporate world too. You know, you just lose sight of the mission. And once that starts up here, I mean, like it trickles, you know. So when the mission's lost, like what are we working for? You know, I did see here recently that they are agreeing on a budget and they're kind of getting some pay raise, but like it was also tough to, during that whole time, to understand that we were the 49th, you know, highest paid state agency in the country. There's 50 and we were 49th. You know, Charlotte Mecklenburg was making more than a trooper would at master trooper. So that was 8 years in. They were making like 25 grand more. Just people would leave as, you know, senior trooper like I was and go make $115,000 to work in Charlotte. Yes, you're dealing with Charlotte problems, you know, so that's this whole other animal, you know. But when you have things like that against you, you have your agency that you don't feel like is going to support you at times. And I'm not saying that's holistically. Like I think there's some really good dudes that care about the trooper, you know.
Yep.
But when every single chase that you're in, there's how many ways can we write you up? Every single time you have to use force on someone, it's again, how many ways can we write you up? And then they tell you, give a pat on the back and say, hey, look, you know, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a piece of paper. That's, we know better than that. You know, they wait. They wait for the time that they can stick it all to you. It's like, oh man, look, we tried. We told them all these times to do this thing. You know, and unfortunately, I'm seeing that happen to one of my best friends right now that's on the agency. You know, like he was warned on all these times, and now that he's messed up in this way, like we're gonna show that, like, man, we tried. You know, and that's how they get rid of good people. You know, and like I'm not saying that's what would have happened, but it was definitely a fear of mine. And like when you're already balancing your home life, and then you're going to court and seeing all these things that you risked your life to stop, not mean anything, and then the financial problems that come with the economy's changing, but the patrol isn't. You know, and I know that the patrol's not exclusive to that. There's plenty of agencies out there, or plenty of professions in the same boat. But when I realized that that was all happening and I could also serve like I said, in a greater capacity with my camera and supply for my family and do the things that are impactful day in and day out. It just kind of, it got to the point where I was just like, okay, it's time. I set a line in the sand. I talked to my wife and I told her, I said, hey, we're going to leave this in God's hands. If we get to this, threshold of what we're trying to achieve, and like at that time, it was like a number of weddings. If we get to this number of weddings, I'll step away. I don't have all the answers, but that will be my threshold. And I do try to stick to my word, even if it's a word to myself. I try to stick to my word, and I hit that threshold, and it was like, okay, well, it's time. So I typed up my resignation, and that was tough. Typed it up, turned it in to my sergeant, and I gave him a 3-week notice instead of 2, because like we were already so short in the district. Like that was the other hard part. Is like I still very much care for every single person there, still in contact with them. But I knew it was the best thing for me and my family. And like at the end of the day, if we're not taking care of our families, then what are we doing? Because if something were to have happened to me, the patrol will definitely, make mention of it. They would have definitely had a memorial. Like, and I'm not saying those things don't happen, but it's a train that's not stopping anytime soon. The show has to keep going. Unfortunately, your family will have to live with that for the rest of their lives. Your kids grow up without a dad. Your wife, be a widow, but the patrol, the military, it has to keep moving. They can't sit around and do it because like there's officers dying every single day, and those families are ruined for the rest of ever. But the agency has to keep rolling, And I realized, especially when I got out, and I had not a single person in my senior leadership reach out to me when I left, that I'm just a number. And I am so much more than that.
Did you take that personal?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's
Not that I needed some, thing.
No.
But like a simple phone call.
I know, man.
Just to say, hey man, are you sure? Or, hey man, we really appreciate everything you did while you're here. I don't need much. I don't need a pat on the back. I don't need to tell. I don't even need the good job thing. I just some sort of like recognition of like I dedicated 6 years almost of my life to this mission, to do this, to help others, and it meant something. That's all I sought. There's like you said, there's a reason that I've missed all of this stuff for my family, and it meant something. And I know you faced the same thing getting out of Special Forces. I know it. And like that alone was everything I needed to see. And even on my days where like I start to doubt myself, because I know, with Alpha Country, there's days that you doubt, like where are we going to go with this? But even on those days, like I remind myself of like, this is what it was when you left. This is what you actually meant to them. I hate to say it, but you're not much. You're a number. You're not even much more than that. And I know there's so many guys out there in that same boat that are just waiting to get to the next thing. We met somebody in the coffee shop, 2 days ago, who's at year 17. He's like, man, I just got to hold on. I just got to hold on. Is that what we live life for?
He's been saying that for a while. I can tell. You've seen this plenty of times. That I've seen. That's exactly. And I'm sure that dude's a great dude.
Absolutely.
He's an awesome guy. But for sure, how long has he been saying that? Probably at 10 years.
Probably the past 7 years or greater, he has been saying that, or 10, whatever.
He's been saying it since before 10 years, is he just needs to get to 10 years. And then once he got to 10 years, he's like, well, I'm halfway there now. And then the rest of it's all just on the other side of the hill,
Yeah.
Military, law enforcement, it's all the same thing, bro. Do you remember? So you didn't realize this until after you got out, obviously. So do you remember the day that you handed in your resignation and how you felt? Like,
off the top of my head, I don't remember the exact date, but I know, it was roughly 3 weeks prior to, February 13th, I think it was what it was. So roughly around there. I remember turning it in, and I had it on my computer for probably a month.
just like going back and forth about whether or not.
Yeah, I had it on my computer for about a month, and like I said, I won't lie. There's days that it creeps in. And it's like, man, was that the right choice? But then, like I said, you just have to remind yourself of like, what are you working for? What are you doing? Like, are you actually serving? Are you helping people? Like being here, building this mission, like there's purpose, there's dedicated things that we can do to inspire others to be better, to improve their lives, improve their families' lives. Like there is a dedicated and clear mission, and we both care about each other to the point that we're not going to let it ruin our family. But like it got to the point with the patrol. They always said, it was God Family Patrol. It was patrol, 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 and then once more patrol. Again, I love every single one of the ones that continue to do that job, and I still very much am very appreciative to help out where I can to help them with their mission that they have in their mind. But my family was more important than another courtroom day of losing to somebody that almost took me away from my family. That's where I got to. There was no amount of money that could have changed that. Like I would have rather been broke as shit, but been with my family and figured that out than dedicate another day of service to people that didn't appreciate me. And I'm not talking about the agency, but like the public. The only time the public cared about law enforcement and to this day is when they are in trouble and they don't have an answer. That's it. That is the only time. And other than that, you're the enemy. You're the guy that's just out to get you. And
Yeah, like I said at the beginning of this shit, bro, I thought that before meeting you that a state trooper's job was to, ghillie suit his vehicle in the grass and get you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's a lot of people's perception, like that's the big bad wolf right there. He's going to come and get you, and.
Well, it's what you said. The media shows the bad.
The bad.
Yep, they don't show the positive.
And like I wish that more people got to see the sides of the troopers I got to work with and still talk to this day, that like just see how genuine they are, and to see, just have this insight to like they're such good dudes.
Yeah.
That care about their families, that just want to supply their families with a better life than they had, that genuinely care about people. They're there to help them.
Yeah.
Every wreck, even if it was a minor bump up, we're there to solve the problem, to help them out with whatever the thing is. And then the flip side of that, like when someone has died and we have to go to someone's residence and tell them that their loved one is not ever coming back, that's not coming from a place of I'm out to get you. But it's like that's forgotten somewhere, and that's arguably the hardest thing, is telling someone that. But they don't see it that way. They like you said, they just see him as a big bad wolf. And I think that once, like I said, I learned that I could serve people in a greater capacity, in my opinion, with other tools, and shift my focus to the joys of life rather than all the negatives. I mean, when it started to become framed like that, it was not a hard decision. It just really wasn't.
Yeah. I don't actually think that's what you did. I fucking have a lot more situational awareness than that, but I think that a lot of people do think that. I truly do. Which is shitty. But so it's like everybody is going to face this point. I've heard you tell me about multiple people that have come to you asking you like, bro, how'd you do it? You know what I mean? How'd you get out? And it's like, my question is like, are you even able to step out of the box and look and evaluate everything? That's the first step. That's the first step that, when you're closing such a big chapter like this, like you have to be able to see it all and what's actually going on. You know what I mean? And if you can do that and you realize the same things that me and you both realized about the places that we were at, it's pretty easy. It's like,
it's just one more, obstacle that you got to overcome. I mean, that's all it really comes down to. Like, I know the biggest thing a lot of guys were holding on to is like, well, we got this insurance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I figured out the insurance. Oh man, we got this retirement. I got a financial planner. He helps me figure out like how to invest my money. Like there's ways, there's other ways. Like I think it happens in the military. I think it happens in law enforcement, first responder, everybody. Like you get told that there is only one type of cereal that you can eat and you better eat it. That's all you got. There are no other types of cereal. That's it. This is what you got. And man, there's a whole grocery store. You can figure out the solution to what you got to eat for breakfast. Like, and I think somehow, some way that gets put into people's brains of like, this is the only way. I am limited to being the 49th highest paid state agency. I am limited to dedicating my life to all these people that don't care. I am limited to, you fill the blank in, military, whatever. But there's always another way, and if you have something that like you are actually genuinely passionate about that can make a difference, and even if you don't have all the answers, but that you can figure them out, the only thing stopping you is you.
Yeah.
That is it. You didn't have all the answers starting a business. You probably didn't know the first thing about any of it. What would you do? You figured it out.
Yeah.
That's why I tell people, like, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out.
And it's like not everybody gets to this point, man. Some people do their 20 years and fully have never hit this point. But if you are and you're like hating, you leave that place and you're just like, dude, what the fuck? You know what I mean? You're gonna take risks doing that, or you're gonna take risks, changing it and making the change. But it is no easier for you than it is gonna be for them. You know what I mean?
No.
You turned your passion and things like that, and I think that's another place where people get stuck. They're like, man, I'm not good at anything else, bro. Like, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? What do you do after, let's say you don't have a skill or something like that to where you hate your life, but, at the end of the day, they got to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, no, you don't have that answer. I don't have that answer. Nobody's going to have that answer. No podcast is going to have that answer. But, I think that your story is just an example for them to be like, all right, I saw Noah, whoever that knows you, I saw Noah, absolutely laser focused, really, really good at his job as a patrol, and then be able to close that and start a new one. You know what I mean? It may look easy from the outside and think that there was just this easy transition, bro, but you have worked on yourself. You've worked on changing and all this, like getting in shape and all this kind of stuff, bro. Really like fully looking at like you and how that you can be better for even just since I met you. I've seen this change of like prioritizing yourself, understanding that that's how you can show up for your family the best way. You know what I mean? And, but I think that it's absolutely scary no matter who you are closing that chapter. And I think we're both still working on that. And I want you to tell I want you to tell them about that backpack analogy.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the other day of like, if you have this backpack on, and metaphorically of like all the things that and that you're comfortable with, and like that's your gear, that's your stuff that you are holding on to make sure that you're getting to the destination. If you have to leave that backpack behind so that you can pick up a better one, you can't keep a strap on. You can't just drag it behind you, because you can't carry both. If you're really dedicated to this thing, I mean, like that high level of dedication is ultimately what matters. That's ultimately what that threshold that I talked about came into play. Like, I knew I was getting to the point with my photography and videography that if I did not dedicate, it was stuck where it was at. It was never going any further. It was right there. I was at full capacity. I could not take on any more and be a trooper. So either I was going to be a trooper or I was going to be, what I'm doing now. And I think when people try to focus in on too many things, just like we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, that's where they fail. If you are, hauling mulch and dirt and whatever, and like you are good at hauling things and like that is your business, but you are still holding on to trying to be, whatever it is, you can't expect your other business to continue to grow. But to a certain point, there is a cap. Unless you actually dedicate to it, actually let go of that backpack to pick up this one, you will always be there. And if you're cool with that, man, great. I mean, like if that's what you want to do, man, I'm not judging. I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing. That might be the right answer for you. Maybe that's the balance you need. It was not for me. Yeah. It was not for you.
Yeah.
Like mediocrity is never something I've accepted. I don't accept it for my kids. I never will. That's not how I run my house. That's not how I run my business. If I don't have an answer for something, I'm going to figure it out. if if I come up short on something, I'm going to look at it holistically, be like, why did I come up short? How can we do better? And then execute. And that's probably learned military. I mean, like my dad, whatever. Like there's so many things that led me to that point. But you run it the same way. That's why me and you get along. Me and you were able to have hard conversations and say, hey, look, this wasn't it. What do we do to change it? And it's not personal. It's like, hey, we genuinely care about the mission, so let's fix it.
Yeah.
But people aren't willing to do that. They're stuck in this mediocrity. And I think that's what it really was, is like, if I stayed where I was at, I was going to be mediocre at both. I have no desire to do that.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be the best I can be at whatever I'm doing. And man, some guys, that might be flipping burgers.
Yeah.
And honestly, whatever, if that's your thing,
Yeah.
and you like
Be
flipping
the
burgers,
fucking best at it.
be the best burger flipper you can be.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that got lost. My granddad just retired. He worked on machines and things like that. That man was dedicated. He was up at 3 o'clock every single morning, at work every single day before 6 o'clock, and did not get back home from work until 7 o'clock at night.
All right. So we're gonna wrap this up, but just for today, you know what I mean. There's a lot more that I want to get to and that I planned.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna wrap it up for this. Is gonna be our first episode, and then we're gonna pick it up. Episode 2 will be part 2 of this, and it's gonna be the transition when you made that decision of getting out. You know what I mean, and then what we're doing, what we're building, the vision. Probably going to be like an hour or anything, but if there's anything that you want to say kind of in closing leading up to that point, before we pick up on the next one.
Biggest thing I think is just, like I said, I still have the utmost respect and love and care for every single person that is continuing to be a trooper or to continue to be in law enforcement, general first responder, in the military. Like, for some people, that is the path. That is where they are going to serve the most and where they can feel the most fulfilled. And for that, like, again, I could not express the level of gratitude that I have for my time in, but I am very appreciative of my ability and the blessings I've had to be where I'm at. And I guess the biggest thing is I want people to just know, like, if you have something that is like a greater calling, do not feel limited. I don't want people to think that there is, like I said, one type of cereal you can eat. Like, man, there's so many different ways to skin this thing, but ultimately you only have one life, and you don't want to be the guy that's sitting there, like I said, 30 years done with whatever it is, and you don't have a relationship with your kids because you became this version of yourself to survive, or whatever the case may be. You don't want to be in that spot. But for some, they do find that balance, and that is the way they need to be and where they need to go, and that's where they can be most used. I do think that more people need to talk about the things they're going through. I think that was something I was really, really hesitant for a long time on. I didn't want to tell people that, like, I was struggling with whatever it was. I told the closest ones to me, a little bit, but I didn't go into depth. Like, I didn't tell my pastor, until literally a month ago that during that year I was suicidal. I didn't tell anybody. I was in a really dark spot, and like I said, the only thing that got me through that was my kids at that point, and then ultimately I met Kayla, and, that's taking me leaps and bounds further than I ever thought it would be. And I will say too, like, if you have someone in your life that, is trying to accomplish a thing, and maybe it's not for you, but like it's for the total, package for your family, the best thing you can do there is support them. Like, I have seen what this video photo thing looks like when you have someone that doesn't support you. I was literally told it was a joke. I mean, I was. It's the truth of the matter. I was told that video and photo stuff, it's a joke. It's not a real career. Fill in the blank with everything else said. And then you compare that to where I'm at now with someone who's a dedicated spouse that is mission oriented. They are dedicated to the mission. You are a team working towards a single mission, telling you that, hey, you can do this. When it gets hard, hey, you got this. Like, and I feel like a lot of people don't have that, and I feel like if you're not the person building something, but you can support someone in what they are building, do it. It's not. It doesn't take anything. It doesn't take anything from you other than just to say, "Hey, you got this," or "Hey, I'm here for you. Let's figure this thing out." You know. But when you have people that are not for the mission, man, it's so hard. It's so hard to make it happen. And I know you've met that with other people you've worked with in the past. Like, if someone's not where they're supposed to be for the right reasons, it's never going to work. If they're not dedicated to what you're trying to build, it's not going to work. And like ultimately, could not be more grateful for me and you meeting. And I know it was a simple Instagram message. It's like, hey, let's try this thing out. Let's figure it and see if we can do it. But man, just in a few months' time, like I've seen changes in myself, which is not something I usually recognize. I've seen changes in you, and like you, every single time around you, you seem motivated. You seem dedicated. And I know for a fact, because me and you are very much alike, that you have moments where you're like, dude, what the hell am I going to do? How the hell am I going to make this work? What's the answer? But I do think it's easier, just like with what we went through with infantry school and, you further with that training and what I went through with patrol school. If you have other people that are in that with you, they're in the pit with you, more times than not, you can figure it out.
It's definitely gotten a lot clearer on how we're going to do this since we met, but I know you, bro, and I think that you're about to go drive back 2 hours back to your house, and you're going to be thinking about everything that you just said. And I just want you to know that you're not talking shit about anybody or anything. You know what I mean? You are sharing this not to talk shit about them or anything, and you're not. You're sharing this for that person that may be suicidal right now, that may be in the same position that you were in there, and they're feeling like this. That's who you're talking to when you're talking about those kinds of things. It's not about that you're saying anything bad about them at all. So I just want you to remember that, because I know that you've never talked about this kind of stuff like out in that is going to go public and things like that, or have access to the public where people can just hear this kind of stuff. And a lot of people probably, same thing when I talk about the Army, they think that I'm like shitting on the Army, right? And I'm not shitting on the Army. You're not shitting on anybody, but usually it's taken as this dude's talking shit about, this and this and this, and it looks green from the other side. You know what I mean? But you're not. You're just sharing your experience. And, like, it's very important that this experience does, get out there, because I know for a fact that there are a lot of people out there that are feeling this way. We're talking specifically in these types of careers. We cannot speak on the other things. We don't know. Yeah. But we know, and we have a lot of friends that have committed suicide, like that are suicidal, or that you hear very, very similar stories about what you went through. You know what I mean? Like different, but similar. So we're not speaking out of like, just some oddball, you know what I mean? You're speaking for a lot of people. I know that you would, if it was just your feelings about all of these things, you wouldn't be here talking right now. You've heard and talked to plenty of your boys and dudes like that have probably seen the same shit and been like, what the fuck are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, I know that. And so I just want you to know, bro, like on your drive back, like you have all my respect. You're a respectable man, and you're just a fucking awesome dude, bro. And I'm so glad that we met, and I fucking love you. And thank you for sharing everything that you just shared, you know, and this is like a 1% of really like those 8 to 10 years or whatever they were of what you saw and stuff like that. So thank you, bro. And I know that like a lot of people are going to get a lot from this, bro. So.
Yeah. And I hope they do. I hope that, like I said, that if someone's in that basement, physically or metaphorically, that they just put one step ahead, 1 foot forward, 1 foot, then the next one, then the next one. Focus on that. If you can do that, I promise it works. It does. Like, I'm living proof of that.
You don't have to blow your brains out.
You don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you're going through. And like, I went through a lot of suffering in a short amount of time, but I recognize there's people that've been through worse. There's the people that've been through a lot worse, and they still make it, and just knowing your why, and that's across the board, like why you're doing your career or why you have to keep going and whatever it is, that matters. For me, it was my kids at that point. Now it's my whole family with my wife too. And, stay dedicated to that mission. Stay dedicated. There is a way out. There is a way to make it work if that's the answer for you. Lean into people who have had similar experiences. Lean into good company. Try your best to not be surrounded by more negative than you have to be. Especially in the careers we come from, it is so easy to be wrapped up in that negativity all the time. All the time, And if you find yourself like naturally progressing out, do what you can to make it work. Don't stay there just to the point that you become this disgruntled cancer. Like that was my biggest fear. Like I knew how I was feeling, and I knew it was a matter of time before that was going to start projecting, and I didn't want that. I don't want that at all. Because for the people that are motivated to be there and want to continue that mission, they don't need that. That is a good indicator to yourself, a self-reflection point of like, it is time. It's time so that I can protect them and protect myself to do the right thing.
Yep.
That's what it comes down to.
Well, that's what we're going to start getting into, bro. So.
Yep.
All right, bro. Love you, dude.
Love you too, man.